Chapter 10:15. Behemoth Forest. The towering trees that reached the clouds did not have the slightest pattern as they stood on the undulating terrain as if they had been there since the beginning of time. Not a single ray of sunlight could reach the forest that was surrounded by trees, emitting an ancient aura. The cries of birds, beasts, and insects were incessant, but there was no trace to be found. Vaguely, a roar full of ferocious and murderous aura was transmitted in the towering forest. Among them, there were even one or two roars that contained a powerful aura. With just one sound, one could tell that the level of the owner was definitely not low. This was the deepest area of the Behemoth Forest, extremely close to the central area where the Beast King had been born. It could be said that this was the most terrifying area in the Behemoth Forest outside of the central area. The edge of the inner area was quite a distance away from here. It was common knowledge that the distribution of magical beasts in the Behemoth Forest was that the closer to the central area, the higher the level of the magical beasts. The central area of the Behemoth Forest was also divided into three areas: the outer area, the inner area, and the deepest area of the Behemoth Forest. Therefore, other than the central area, the deepest area of the Behemoth Forest was the area where the highest level magical beasts lived. In the deepest area of the Behemoth Forest, the magical beasts were not as terrifying as the 12-peak 9th level magical beasts that Wu Yin and the others saw when they went to the central area to search for the Beast King. However, it was still an area where 9th level magical beasts were active, because magical beasts generally had longer lifespans. Even if they did not live for thousands of years, they lived for hundreds of years. Some with longer lifespans could even live for thousands of years. In addition, the deepest area of the Behemoth Forest was an area that humans did not want to go near the most. Therefore, after a long time, the number of 9th level magical beasts here had accumulated to a certain extent. They were not as strong as the 12-peak 9th level magical beasts, but they were still 9th level magical beasts. Of course, the deepest area of the Behemoth Forest did not only have 9th level magical beasts. There were 8th level magical beasts as well. These magical beasts, all of them were at the peak of the 8th stage. Magical beasts below the peak of the 8th rank didn't dare to approach this place. Even if they were at the peak of the 8th rank, some magical beasts would choose to live in the inner regions of the Behemoth Forest, at least in the inner circle. They could even be the lords of a land. But if he was caught by a magical beast of the 9th step in the depths of the forest, then his tendons were pulled out, his skin was peeled, and his body was eaten. That was certain. Under such circumstances, unless it was really necessary to come here, such as the previous operation to investigate the birth of a Beast King, even a powerhouse of the 9th level would not be willing to come here. But today, in the depths of the Behemoth Forest that everyone feared, someone had come. In a certain corner of the Behemoth Forest, there was a dilapidated stone forest. The trees that were everywhere stopped growing here, leaving behind a large empty area. There were no more trees. Instead, there were stone pillars, stone spikes, stone towers, and even stone statues. It looked like someone had lived here before. The stones were artificially carved, but in fact, they were all natural. That's right, the stones in this stone forest naturally existed here. No one had ever touched them, and no one had ever come here before. It had been at least 1,000 years since anyone had come here. No one knew how long it took for this place to become such a miraculous sight. One could not help but sigh at the uncanny workmanship of nature. Now, this stone forest that had been lifeless for a long time finally welcomed a guest. At the edge of the stone forest, a pitch-black crack suddenly and silently ripped open in the empty space, exposing the vicious eyeballs inside. It caused the dead silence in the surroundings to become eerie all of a sudden. It was chilling. In the next moment, in the pitch-black crack filled with sinister eyeballs, Violet held a parasol and leaned on her slender shoulder. She walked out of the crack with a smile on her face, as if she was taking a leisurely stroll. Her dress fluttered in the wind as she slowly walked out of the crack and arrived in front of the stone forest. The gap closed after its success, returning the scene to an intact void as if nothing had happened. Only Purple's figure stood alone in front of the tall stone forest. Compared to those stones, Purple's slender figure was undoubtedly very tiny. However, the incredible sense of existence that hovered around her gave people a wonderful feeling that she was the only one in the world. It was far from what those dilapidated stones could compare to. Her hand stroked the hair by her ear. Her action was so natural that it could definitely make the blood of the young men boil. Zihuan's bright eyes were cast on the stone forest. She glanced at her surroundings and tilted her body. Soon after, she smiled. "It's here, right?" Her light voice echoed as if she was talking to herself, as if she was waiting for someone to answer her. She turned her head and looked in a direction beside her. Over there, a few black figures were slowly closing in on them. Those were demonic beasts. No, to be more precise, they were demonic beasts that had turned into monsters. Its entire body was covered in pitch-black scales. The front end of its four limbs were like the claws of a ghost or the tentacles of an octopus. It was extremely disgusting. Its ferocious head was also covered in black scales. However, there were no eyes on it. What was left was only a large eye socket that looked like a pair of goggles. Inside the eye sockets, there were many moving eyeballs. These demonic beasts looked more like monsters than demonic beasts. Some looked like baboons, some looked like tigers, some looked like jackals, wolves, tigers, leopards, and some looked like elephants, fish, dogs, and cats. However, all of them were covered in pitch-black scales. The front of their limbs had turned into that disgusting appearance. Coupled with their ferocious heads and strange eyes, it was as if they had returned from hell. Even Purple, who had lived for over 1,000 years and had seen a lot of things, couldn't help but raise her beautiful eyebrows when she saw such a monster. Demonic beasts? They don't look like them. If Wu Yin was here, he would have noticed that these demonic beasts looked exactly the same as Marcus and Bing Mian when they were possessed by blacklight. Just as Violet was sizing up the demons in front of her and trying to identify their species, those disgusting demons suddenly let out a strange cry that sounded like the cry of a dying cat. Their disgusting eyes were cast on Violet's body, and then a thick black aura erupted from their bodies. Seeing the black aura flowing around the demonic beasts, Violet's brows furrowed tightly. A trace of disgust appeared in her eyes. One uncomfortable aura. She twirled the parasol in her hand and sneered. "I wanted to study it more, but this aura is too disgusting. It's even more disgusting than the bad luck on the body. If I capture you all, Xiaoyan and my sisters won't like it. It's better if you all disappear." Before Violet could finish her words, the magical beasts seemed to have lost their patience. Amidst the ghostly roars, they leaped into the air, bringing with them a large amount of black gas. They were like dark clouds that blotted out the sky and covered the earth as they pounced on Violet. "Allah!" Violet smiled faintly at the demonic beasts that pounced on her. How impatient! She didn't do anything but slowly smiled. In the next moment, a mysterious wave reverberated from her body and spread out like a wave. This is Violet's ability, the power of a realm. In just a moment, the wave that represents the power of a realm smashed into the demonic beasts like a hot knife through butter. In the depths of the behemoth forest, the demonic beasts in front of them are disgusting, but their strength is not to be underestimated. Looking at the black aura that blotted out the sky, each one of them is probably a level 9 demonic beast. But this group of level 9 demonic beasts didn't even make a sound in front of Violet's ability. They didn't even have time to struggle. In the blink of an eye, under the power of a realm, they were all turned into ashes. Not a trace of them was left behind. With a wave of her hand, a group of level 9 demonic beasts died in Violet's hands. This is the power of a demigod. This is Violet's power. It belongs to the founder of Fantasy Village, the power of a sage. As for Yukari herself, it was as if she had done something extremely insignificant. Her expression did not even change in the slightest. Only a sharp glint flashed in her purple eyes as she looked at the place where the magical beasts had been reduced to ashes a second ago. Over there were streaks of black light dancing. Chapter 10:16. There were about a dozen of them. The black lights danced up and down like ribbons, pacing back and forth like large earthworms, twisting their bodies. However, if one were to observe carefully, one would notice that although they were flying around recklessly, none of them dared to fly in the direction of Amethyst. Purple narrowed his eyes filled with interest. Although Amethyst did not know what these black lights were, she was certain when she saw that they were timid and did not dare to approach her. These black lights either had consciousness, or even if they did not, they had a beast-like instinct. They knew what was dangerous and what could threaten them. Black lights with instincts or consciousness. They could even attach themselves to other life forms. Amethyst felt that she had seen enough strange things in her life. She had seen all kinds of strange things in the fantasy village. However, she was still interested in something like this. The reason why those magical beasts became so disgusting is probably because of you. Amethyst's lips curled up slightly. She stretched out her hand. That's good too. I can't take those disgusting things away, so I'll bring you back to study them. Amethyst did not know if the black lights understood her words. When Amethyst stretched out her hand, they all trembled. With a sudden twist, it broke through the atmosphere and flew toward the forest in the distance with a whistling sound of wind. Their speed exceeded that of an ordinary ninth-grade warrior. Running away, seeing the black lights flying in the opposite direction of her, Yukari was not surprised. Instead, she was delighted. They chose to run away when she was about to attack instead of running away when the situation was bad. Amethyst could basically rule out the possibility that the black lights had consciousness. These black lights, they should have some kind of biological instinct and relied on it to control their actions. Isn't this interesting? Amethyst's interest grew. She no longer dared to delay. She slowly opened her hand and let her palm face up. Then, a sparkling, translucent cube appeared in Amethyst's palm, glowing with golden light. Amethyst was not only good at cultivation, she was also good at enchantments. This cube was one of the enchantments that Amethyst was good at, quadruple enchantments. Therefore, if anyone could discover it, he would have seen it. Inside this small cube, there were 3 other cubes that almost overlapped with it. These cubes were one size smaller than the original one. Clearly, by using the power of the barrier, Violet wanted to capture all of these black lights. With a move of his palm, the 4-layered square enchantment whistled in the air. It expanded with the wind and turned into a star. It tore through space and shrouded the black light that was flying away. Buzz! Before they could even touch He Guang's body, the 4-layered square-shaped barrier expanded fiercely. In an instant, it expanded from the size of a palm to the size of a stone forest on the ground, covering the sky above the stone forest. Although the speed of the black light was extremely fast, the 4-layered cube that suddenly expanded was even faster. In less than a second, it had already grown to the point where it could envelop the stone forest below, enveloping all the black light. The black light that was trapped in the enchantment did not slow down at all. It crashed into the enchantment at an extremely fast speed. In the end, it was like an egg crashing into a rock. With a muffled sound, it flew back and almost shattered itself. When all the black light was trapped in its body, the 4-layered barrier slowly descended. As it descended, it shrank in size. When the 4-layered barrier fell back into Amethyst's palm, it had already returned to its original size. Amethyst looked at the black light that was scuttling back and forth in the 4-layered barrier, trying to break free from the barrier. A joyful smile appeared on her face. For the time being, it shouldn't be boring. Amethyst shook his head with a smile as he patted the 4-layered barrier that imprisoned the black light in his hand. After all, it seems like we're not the only ones interested in you. When he said this, Amethyst raised his voice slightly. It was extremely clear as it reverberated in the surroundings. It was like a sound wave that slowly drifted into the distance, as if he was deliberately saying this for someone to hear. As it turned out, Amethyst's actions were not without reason. Beep! Suddenly, the sound of thunder striking down from the clouds in the sky like a thunderbolt. A burst of dazzling light flashed, illuminating the entire dilapidated stone forest in an instant. Amethyst raised his head slightly, with a faint smile on his lips. He looked at the thunderbolt that was striking down. To be more precise, Amethyst was not looking at the thunderbolt, but at a person within it. That's right. There was a person within the thunderbolt. It was a man who looked to be in his 40s or 50s, but he had a long beard on his chin. This person wore a white robe with a thunderbolt pattern engraved on it. In addition to the thunderbolt that fell from the sky just now, one could imagine how powerful this person was. However, although the scene just now was very shocking, the aura on this person's body was faintly discernible. It was not as domineering as the thunderbolt engraved on his white robe. He was just like an ordinary person. However, could an ordinary person float in the air? In the Spalier world, there is only one type of person who could float in the air other than those who were proficient in wind magic and some special flying magic and combat techniques. A demigod. This person was actually a demigod. Whoosh. Almost at the same time as the thunderbolt fell, an ear-piercing sound of wind breaking resounded above the stone forest. With a sonic boom, the person cut through the sky with a momentum that was not inferior to the previous one. In a flash, he appeared above the stone forest. It was an old man, an inconspicuous old man wearing a gray robe. However, this old man was also floating in the air. Just as the old man appeared above the stone forest, a pitch-black figure flashed from afar. As if teleporting, it directly appeared beside the old man and the old man in the white robe. This time, the person who appeared was also an old man. He was also floating in the air, but the difference was that he was wearing a black robe. In the blink of an eye, in the behemoth forest, in the sky above the stone forest, 3 demigods appeared. No, it's not over yet. Whoosh, like the howling of the wind and thunder flashed, bringing with it an ear-piercing sound. Immediately, another figure appeared in the sky. Her long hair was scattered behind her back, fluttering with the wind around her. She looked very elegant. She looked to be around 30 years old, more than twice as young as the other 3. However, the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes constantly showed that her real age was definitely above what one could see from her appearance. This was a gorgeous woman. However, she also knew how to float in the air. The 4 people who suddenly appeared in the sky stood in opposition to each other, forming a square with 4 corners. After they appeared, their auras completely disappeared. They were all like ordinary people, inconspicuous, if one ignored the fact that they were floating in the air, sweeping her gaze across the 4 people in the air. The smile on Violet's lips unknowingly widened by quite a bit, proving that she was definitely in a rather good mood right now. However, that happiness was not directed at the 4 people in the sky. Instead, under the guidance of her gaze, it was directed towards the person on the ground opposite her. In her vision, in front of her, in the stone forest, next to a stone pillar that was supposed to be lifeless, a figure appeared out of nowhere, silver-white hair, blue muslin clothes, a delicate figure, a beautiful face. She was in the prime of her youth, looking as youthful and beautiful as Violet. However, Z's interest in such a young girl was even greater than that of the 4 people in the air who weren't young at all. This was because although the auras of the 4 people in the air were ordinary, Yukari could still clearly sense their specific strength. As for this young lady who looked as young as herself, if not for Yukari wanting to test the wonders of the system's perceptive ability, she might not have discovered her until now. It wasn't that she was stronger than Violet, but there seemed to be something on her that was hiding everything about her. Chapter 10:17. In the air, the white-robed old man, the gray-robed old man, the black-robed old man, and the gorgeous woman faced each other. They looked at each other, as if they were surprised by each other's appearance. "I didn't expect you to come as well." The white-robed old man was the first to voice his surprise. When he looked at the black-robed old man, the surprise in his eyes became even more obvious. "That's not a big deal. I didn't expect you to come as well, Mula. You haven't left your Spalier World Academy magic crystal shop for at least a decade, right?" Hearing this, the black-robed old man snorted heavily, and his attitude was extremely bad as he yelled, "What? Do you have a problem with me coming here? Magnubi!" If Wu Yin was here, he would be so shocked that his jaw would drop to the ground if he saw this black-robed old man whom Magnubi referred to as Mula. This old man is the owner of a magic crystal shop that Wu Yin met when he first entered Silverio World Institute. The owner of the shop had a very bad attitude towards his customers. After hearing Mu La's bad attitude, the other three didn't feel strange at all. Obviously, it was not the first time that they had seen Mu La's bad attitude. "I'm just a little surprised." Magnubi glanced at Mula. "Didn't you say you wouldn't leave the Spalier World Academy until you reached peak demigod rank?" Mula curled his lips in disdain and sneered. "Didn't you say you wouldn't cultivate your lightning beast-type combat skill to the point where you could destroy the entire Spalier World Academy? You wouldn't leave the Baruba Empire's treasury?" "Oomph." Magnubi's eyes flashed with anger. "If you didn't embarrass me, would I have said something like that? I just don't like the way you Baruba men look down on women." Mura spat out his saliva. "Disgusting. Enough." The argument between Mula and Magnubi escalated to a higher level. When his anger was on the verge of erupting, the gorgeous woman stood up at the right time. "Stop arguing. Since you're here, I'm sure you're here for the same reason. Do you want to mess things up by arguing?" Mulla and Magnubi paused at the same time. After exchanging a glance, they both snorted. Turning his head away, he could tell that the relationship between the two of them was not good. "Linya, did you receive the news as well?" Magnubi turned his gaze to the beautiful woman. "I thought I was the only one who received the news. Even Mura left the Silverio World Institute, and you received the news. It's reasonable for you to leave the Fea Empire's treasury. Aren't you the same?" The gorgeous woman named Linya smiled and looked at the gray-robed old man who had been silent all this time. "Why didn't you tell me that something like this happened?" "Garen, that's not very nice of you." "Yes, the gray-robed old man. He's the guardian of Ailu Empire, Garen." As for the other three people's identities, they could more or less guess from the conversation just now. Magnubi is the guardian of Baruba Empire. Linya is the guardian of Fea Empire. As for Mula, even though he's not a guardian, he's one of the 5 demigods in the Spalier world. 5 demigods. At this moment, 4 demigods appear at the same time. Maybe there's more than 4. Mula, Linya, and Magnubi looked at the silent Garland at the same time. They could feel the other three's gazes. Garen smiled bitterly. "It's not that I don't want to talk about it. It's just that the truth is too unbelievable. If we don't get to the bottom of it, who would dare to talk about it?" A glint flashed across Jarlin's eyes as he looked at the 3 demigod powerhouses who seemed to be deep in thought. Something that can turn people into monsters and level up. The 4 demigod experts were rarely seen in 100 years. Now that they had come here, their objective was obvious. It's the black light. Come to think of it, it was Bing Mian who created this rare scene. Even though he was possessed by the black light and turned into a monster, Bing Mian's vitality is strong. When the black light left his body, Bing Mian was able to recover. Wu Yin didn't kill him at the time. Instead, he agreed to Bing Mian's request and allowed them to deal with it themselves. Anyways, the half-crippled Bing Mian turned into a cripple after Kuroto messed with him. Even walking is a problem for him. Wu Yin isn't in the mood to deal with a piece of trash like this. The Saito family learned about the origin of the black light from Bing Mian and how Marcus and Bing Mian were turned into monsters and leveled up unnaturally. Following that, the Saito clan's Type 9 powerhouse brought up the matter during the council meeting. At the same time, the news reached Garen and the other demigods. They were tempted. It's not that they wanted to be turned into monsters. What attracted them was the effect. Leveling up. This was a huge temptation to others, but to those who had already become demigods, it was even more tempting. After all, if even they could level up, then what would happen if a demigod leveled up? Celestial. It's been missing for a long time. All demigods dream of leveling up to Celestial. Under the temptation of leveling up to Celestial, they ignored the side effects of the black light. Perhaps they thought that with their level, they could eliminate the side effects of the black light. They don't know what to do if they can't eliminate the side effects. Anyway, it's better to have a chance than not to have one. This was also the reason why they were all gathered here today. Demigods are indeed powerful. Somehow, they found out that the black light originated from the behemoth forest. Hence, they came here one after another. Yukari used her realm energy and 4 layers of barrier to capture the black light. They sensed the powerful energy and came here. That's what led to the current situation. Thinking of the powerful force they had just sensed, the 4 demigods looked down at the same time. They saw the confrontation between Violet and the silver-haired girl, which stunned them. Then they were surprised. "That's—" Linya exclaimed when she saw the silver-haired girl. "Cynthia? She's here too." "It's not that strange." Jarlin shook his head and sighed. "The 4 of us are here. It's only natural that Cynthia would come. After all, leveling up is too tempting, especially for us." Magnubi nodded solemnly. "The 5 demigods of the Spalier world are here. This is going to be interesting." Jaren and Linya's expressions turned serious as well. They only hoped that they would be able to get what they wanted smoothly, and it would be best if there was no conflict. Otherwise, if the 5 demigods of the Spalier world start a war, things will get serious. After all, they don't just represent themselves. They also represent their respective empires. If something goes wrong, the empires under their protection will get involved. If that happens, the Spalier world will be in chaos. Mura, who isn't an empire guardian, didn't think much of it. He glanced at the young girl named Cynthia and then looked at Yukari, who was holding a parasol. That energy just now, was it hers? Jarlin, Linya, and Magnubi looked at each other and frowned. She's a demigod as well? It's no wonder the demigods reacted this way. They're the only 5 demigods in the Spalier world. The sudden appearance of a 6th demigod would shock anyone. However, they quickly recalled something and came to a realization. She must be the demigod who defeated the Beast King. Yes, I've also heard the newly born Beast King was defeated by a newly ascended demigod. What's her name? I remember. If I remember correctly, her name is Yukari Yakumo. The 4 demigod powerhouses began to discuss as if there was no one else around. Although the demigod was on the same level as them, a newly ascended demigod was not enough to warrant their caution. Unfortunately, they didn't know that Yukari isn't a new demigod. In terms of level, Yukari is only average among them. However, in terms of strength, Yukari, who possesses the power of a higher realm, isn't someone they can casually discuss. Chapter 10:18. Perhaps because Garen, Linya, Mula, and Maganubi didn't lower their voices at all, the content of their conversation naturally fell into the ears of the 2 people who were standing opposite to each other on the ground. Cynthia? Yakumo Yukari? The 2 girls muttered at the same time. Their gazes grew more and more interested. Yukari didn't expect such a young girl who looked like she was in her 20s or even in her teens to be a demigod. Silveria wasn't a fantasy world where monsters, vampires, undead, celestial beings were everywhere. Existences that lived as long as the heavens could be found on the streets. Humans were the dominant life forms in this world, but their lives were also weak and pitiful. Yukari didn't think the girl was anything other than a human. However, could a normal human reach the demigod level in their 20s? The answer was no. Now, such a person appeared in front of Yukari. She didn't know if there was any inside story, but it didn't stop Yukari from being curious about Cynthia. Moreover, if she didn't use the system's senses, she wouldn't have been able to discover his existence. As a shifter sage, how could Yakumo Yukari not be curious? As for the young girl, Cynthia, her curiosity was much purer. She was just curious. How did this beautiful girl, who looked about her age, discover her existence? This kind of thing had never happened before. The thing that Cynthia is hiding is no ordinary thing. The 2 beautiful and noble girls had forgotten about the other 4 demigods. They looked at each other in silence, not bothering to hide the curiosity in their eyes. Until a certain moment, Cynthia, who obviously lost in terms of patience, took the initiative to speak. "I'm Cynthia." Yukari smiled and nodded. "Yakumo Yukari. What a strange name. Cynthia pursed her lips. She didn't mince her words. Can you tell me how you discover my existence? Yukari's lips curled into a sly smile. Then, can you tell me how you manage to hide your existence? Me? Cynthia blinked. I relied on external objects to hide my existence. Allah, what a coincidence. Purple smiled. I was only able to discover your existence by relying on external objects. You discover my existence through external means? Cynthia tilted her head and asked curiously, What's that? Looking at the other party's curious expression. The purple side turned sideways. Then what are you relying on to hide your existence? Cynthia rolled her eyes at Yukari. I'm the one asking you a question. Or are you asking me a question? Too cunning. Hearing this, Z only smiled and didn't say anything else. At first, Z was still doubtful. The girl named Cynthia in front of him should be an old monster who had lived for God knows how many years. The reason why she looked so young was because she had used some items to retain her youthful appearance. Her appearance shouldn't match her real age. But now, Yukari has refuted this conjecture. A real old monster, even if they could pretend to be the same as when they were young, it wouldn't be natural and their aura wouldn't be too dazzling. However, not only did Cynthia act like an ordinary young girl, she also acted naturally. Although Yukari couldn't completely sense her aura due to the external object in her mouth, Yukari felt that Cynthia's real age should match her appearance. In other words, Cynthia was a demigod in her teens or 20s. Thinking of this, Amethyst narrowed his eyes slightly. Of course, she didn't think that anyone in their teens or 20s could reach demigod rank. At least in the Spalier world, there was no such person. Even if there was such a person, it would be Wu Yan Summon who had the system. Therefore, this demigod named Cynthia must have a story behind her. At this moment, the 4 demigods floating in the air landed on the ground one after another. They came to Yukari and Cynthia's side. Instinctively, Jarlin, Mula, and Magnubi sized Z up. Only then did they realize that this new demigod master was younger and prettier than they had imagined. Gazing at Z, who was looking at them with a smile, even though Garland and the other 2 were already in their 70s or 80s, they could not help but be amazed. Even Linya, who was a woman, was the same. She also felt a little bit of disbelief. Cynthia was a very young demigod. Yukari could tell this based on her rich experience. The 4 demigods who had known Cynthia for a long time naturally knew this as well. However, they didn't expect that there would be a demigod as young as Cynthia in this world. The reason why Cynthia could become a demigod at such a young age was very complicated. However, it was certain that it wasn't the result of her own cultivation. Therefore, Garland and the others didn't feel anything strange. However, Yukari's appearance made them waver. Could it be that Yukari's appearance was fake and her real age wasn't that young? Or was she in the same situation as Cynthia? Several thoughts flashed through their minds. Although they were puzzled, the 4 demigods did not have the intention to pry into other people's bodies. Soon, their gazes shifted from Violet to her hand, which was the quadrupole barrier that trapped the black gas. Seeing the black gas trapped in the barrier, the demigod's eyes were filled with desire. The most bad-tempered, Mula stepped forward. You're Yakumo Yukari, right? Mura yelled impatiently without any manners. The black gas in your hand, is it the black gas that can turn people into monsters? Garland, Linya, and Magnubi all looked at Yukari with a hint of curiosity in their eyes. Turn people into monsters. Yukari's eyes turned slightly. She looked at the black gas in her hand and shook her head with a seductive smile. I don't know if it can turn a person into a monster, but I got these disgusting things from some magical beast that turn into monsters. That's it. Mula laughed out loud. His voice was filled with joy. The other demigods had the same reaction. Miss Yukari. Garland stepped forward and nodded politely to Yukari. We're also looking for this thing. Since you found it before us, can you give some to us? Yes. Magnubi nodded. Miss Yukari has the same goal as us, right? Then you should know that this thing is very important to us. Very important. We can exchange something with you. Even though Linya was anxious, she did not show it on her face like the rest of them, since she was a woman. I'm sure Miss Yukari can find something she likes. After saying that, the four demigod powerhouses stared straight at Ziming, and they did not shift their gazes away. Yukari listened to the four demigods and looked at the black gas in her hand thoughtfully. She then turned her head and looked at Cynthia. Are you here for this as well? Cynthia was surprised. Cynthia was startled for a moment. She didn't expect Violet to ask her such a question, but she still nodded honestly. Yes, I need this thing too. If you're willing to trade, I can give you something in exchange. Hearing this, Z's smile suddenly became sweet. If someone familiar with Yukari was here, like Wu Yin or Yukari Shikigami, Yakumo, they would break out in cold sweat if they saw this. Yukari was a typical monster. She was difficult to understand, but she had a habit that everyone knew. If there was a sweet smile on Z's face, it meant that she was definitely not thinking of anything good at that moment. The sweeter her smile, the more dangerous it was. The pitiful group of demigods did not know that because of what happened today, they would be toyed around by our demon sage for a long time in the future. Chapter 1019. On the other side, in the depths of the behemoth forest, there's a deep valley with complicated terrain. The deep valley seems to have been split into two halves. There's a small passage at the end that can only allow one person or a small magical beast to pass through. On both sides of the passage are walls that are more than 10 meters tall. There are vines growing all over them. One look, and you can tell that there has been no signs of life here for a long time. And in the deep valley, there was a stream that led to the deepest part of the valley. When the stream reached the end of the valley, it flowed into a lake. At the end of the lake, there was a waterfall on the cliff. Although the terrain of the deep valley is very complicated, there is no doubt that it is a paradise. If there are fruit trees, people can live here for a long time. The behemoth forest is very unsuitable for people to live in. Otherwise, people would have built bases in the behemoth forest to harvest resources. It is not easy to find a suitable place to live in the behemoth forest. One can imagine how unique this deep valley is. Although there are no fruit trees, and it is not suitable for people to live in, it is a good place to live. Unfortunately, this deep valley had already been occupied by someone else on a large rock next to the waterfall. There is a person sitting cross-legged. He is wearing a beast skin coat, and his face is pale. He looks like he has suffered a serious injury and is very weak. The right side of his body was completely deformed. An arm and a pair of thighs had completely disappeared, leaving behind only a torso, an arm, and a head. It was incomparably miserable. If an ordinary person's body was crippled like this, they would probably have thoughts of committing suicide. This person is the Beast King that was heavily injured by Wu Yin. Clearly, the Beast King is not in a good condition. Using his only remaining arm, the Beast King is gnawing on a piece of flesh in his hand. It is indeed a piece of flesh. It is completely raw. It has not been processed at all. Moreover, from this piece of flesh, one can faintly see the outline of a human chest. It is a piece of human flesh. If one looks carefully, they can see that. Below the rock that the Beast King is sitting on, there are many things piled up. Bones. Human bones. They were all humans who had suffered at the hands of the Beast Kings. However, from the looks of it, there weren't many of them. That was only natural. Now, almost everyone knows that the Beast Kings can consume the flesh and blood of cultivators to speed up their recovery. If the Beast Kings were to capture cultivators without restraint, they would definitely be discovered. Therefore, the Beast King could only endure. Every day, he would secretly capture one or two unlucky people in the behemoth forest. If it was just one or two, then it wouldn't be a big problem. After all, the behemoth forest was originally a world of magical beasts. If people wanted to hunt here without casualties, then they would be too naive. Sitting cross-legged on the boulder, the Beast King silently gnawed on the flesh in his hand, extracting the essence within to heal his injuries. Although his injuries were severe, he was a magical beast with a tenacious vitality. Moreover, he was already a demigod. As long as he continued to heal, his injuries would be healed sooner or later. As for whether or not his broken arms and legs could be healed, that would be difficult. Therefore, in addition to secretly capturing 1 or 2 people in the behemoth forest every day, the Beast King would also go out every day to search for treasures. The behemoth forest has plenty of these treasures, some of which can even heal broken limbs. It was also because of this that the Beast King could endure the fact that he was being hunted down. Otherwise, if the proud and arrogant Beast King had to secretly capture ants, he would have gone crazy long ago. The Beast King, who was repeatedly gnawing on the flesh, suddenly stopped and frowned. Then, he quickly turned his gaze towards the deep valley in front of him. There, several figures were gradually approaching. From the looks of it, they should be magical beasts. Seeing this, a trace of anger appeared in the Beast King's eyes. He had already spread out the scent that only magical beasts could sense to warn the other magical beasts in the behemoth forest not to approach this place. But now it seems that some magical beasts ignored his scent and barged in. How could the Beast King not be angry? He is the king of magical beasts. How dare some magical beasts ignore his scent? This is illogical. The Beast King felt that his dignity was being challenged. Magical beasts are not kind pets. The weak are prey to the strong. There are situations where they eat each other all the time. Even if the Beast King sees all the magical beasts as his subordinates, if they dare to offend him, even if they are his subordinates, he will cut off their heads. Just as the Beast King was about to kill the magical beast that barged in, he just moved his hand when he noticed that there was something wrong with these magical beasts. Their bodies were covered in pitch black scales. Their limbs were like ghost hands and tentacles. Their faces only have 1 large eye socket, but there are 7 eyeballs in it. Are these still magical beasts? The Beast King looked at these monstrous magical beasts in confusion. How come I didn't know about this breed? Is it a new breed? But even if it's a new breed, it can't ignore its scent. Something's wrong. The Beast King narrowed his eyes and looked at the magical beasts that were wobbling closer. He waved his hand. Poochie, Poochie, Poochie. Following a few popping sounds, a few sharp bone spikes burst out from the ground beneath those magical beasts and directly pierced through their bodies. Strange sounds came from their mouths. They didn't even have time to see what they killed. Their heads tilted to the side, and their breaths gradually faded away. The Beast King thought this was just a small interlude. However, when the magical beasts died, rays of black light shot out from their bodies and flew into the air. Seeing this scene, the Beast King froze for a moment. After recovering, he hurriedly stretched out a hand, and the mana within his body surged, instantly forming a huge skeletal hand. As it rose and fell, the skeletal hand grabbed a few black lights and pulled them back. The black lights immediately fell into the Beast King's palm. At the same time, a scene that the Beast King did not expect happened. The rays of black light ignored the Beast King's hand and collectively entered his skin. Not long after, the Beast King's hand surged with black gas and black scales climbed up his arm. The Beast King's body trembled. His face became serious. Although I don't know what this thing is, but if it wants to be impudent in my body. As he spoke, the Beast King closed his eyes, and a majestic magic began to circulate around his body. After an unknown amount of time, the Beast King finally opened his eyes when the sky turned completely dark. Rays of black light flashed in his eyes. So that's how it is. A sinister, hateful, and ferocious smile suddenly appeared on the Beast King's face. It made his originally domineering aura seem like that of a devil's. Moreover, his smile continued to widen. In the end, he actually laughed out loud. Ha ha ha. Good. Very good. After saying this, the Beast King rose into the air and flew towards a certain direction in the behemoth forest. Behemoth forest, a tall cliff. When the Beast King arrived at this place, the scene in front of him could be called hell. Waves of dense black gas rolled around like waves, completely enveloping the huge cliff. Within the black gas, rays of black light intertwined and danced around. It was like thousands of insects were stuffed into a small jar. It was a hair-raising sight. Occasionally, one could see 1 or 2 magical beasts in the surroundings of the high cliff that seemed to have been attracted by the strange phenomenon. As a result, these magical beasts were all possessed by the black light that suddenly surged out and turned into ferocious monsters. The Beast King calmly looked at this scene, and a black light flashed in his eyes. His body turned into a meteor and rushed into the black gas. Along the way, streaks of black light surged into his body violently, as if they had seen some delicious food. However, the Beast King did not even try to stop them. He went straight to the top of the cliff, to a platform that was continuously emitting black gas and black light. Then, with a wave of his palm, he directly smashed the entire platform into pieces. Then a pitch-black hole appeared in front of his eyes. Inside, it was all black gas and black light. The Beast King laughed sinisterly. "Wu Yan, Yakumo, human, I will endure for a while until I come out of seclusion." After saying this, the Beast King's body flashed, and he rushed into the hole. On the high cliff, the black gas and black light that enveloped the entire high cliff rapidly decreased at a speed visible to the naked eye and flowed into the hole. Chapter 1020. Ailu Empire, Supply Town. Ever since the establishment of the camp outside the giant beast forest, or more accurately, since the day of the monster rampage, the town's popularity has been dwindling. That's to be expected. The behemoth forest is a natural treasure trove. The reason people keep coming here is because the Spalier world's demand for demonic beast body parts and other natural treasures. Warriors and magicians who have reached a certain level of mastery in the giant beast forest will fight magical beasts. It's not just because fighting magical beasts can increase their combat experience. It's also because killing magical beasts and harvesting their body parts can be sold for a good price. If you're lucky, you can find some rare natural treasures while hunting demonic beasts. It's not impossible for you to become rich overnight. Cultivators had a high status in the hearts of ordinary people because they had great power. However, cultivators also needed to eat, to have a place to stay, and even to feed their families. Not every cultivator was a member of a large clan or a powerful force. In fact, there was a very common phenomenon among all cultivators. Warriors make up 2/3 of the commoners. Magi make up 2/3 of the people in large families and factions. Among all the cultivators, warriors accounted for more than 2/3 of the total number of cultivators. The conclusion drawn from this data was that cultivators make up the majority of the commoners. The result of this conclusion is that cultivators rely on themselves to survive. Most of them had to rely on their own strength to support themselves. Unlike those cultivators from large clans and forces who could rely on their clans and forces to support themselves, most cultivators chose to hunt in the giant beast forest to increase their combat experience while selling their loot. That's the path most cultivators chose to take. That's why the supply town closest to the behemoth forest is the most popular. Cultivators who want to enter the behemoth forest have to pass through here. They sell their demonic beast body parts here. They sleep here at night and travel to and from the behemoth forest. That's why the supply town is the most popular place. Wu Yin still remembers. When he first came to the supply town, the streets were filled with people, regardless of whether it was day or night. It was like a festival, and it was like that every day. But now, the demonic beasts in the behemoth forest are in danger of rioting. The behemoth forest camps have been set up. The Empire gave the camps the resources needed for normal operations. To ensure safety, no one is allowed to enter the behemoth forest. That's the same as cutting off the cultivator's source of income. Of course, no matter what. Even if they were commoners, cultivators were still cultivators. With some strength, they could find a way to get money wherever they went. But at the same time, there was no need for that anymore. There were no more cultivators coming to the supply town. The streets that used to be filled with people were now scattered in 2s and 3s. At a glance, the end of the street could be clearly seen. It was no longer like before, where even 1 or 2 meters away from the ground would be filled with people. The supply town is no longer a supply town. It's a real town. Other than the occasional guards from the camps who come here to buy things, the only people in the supply town are the natives. Fortunately, the shops here are still open. Some of the resources brought back from the camps are sold here. Otherwise, the town would have been abandoned. Thank you for your patronage. Walking out of the shop amidst the cheers of the shop's employees, Wu Yan's hands are already filled with bags. Chuju wants clothes. Misaki-chan wants a bag. Kurumi wants hair accessories. Yoshino wants some books. What else do I need? All right, Mikoto wants Gouda. Kotori wants lollipops. Wu Yan counted the items in the bags. He's a loss. But do they sell Gouda and jewel lollipops in the Spalier world? Obviously, Wu Yan is buying gift for the girls. This is what he promised the girls. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't leave, Wu Yan wouldn't have delayed until now. But from the looks of it, Wu Yan, who's not good at shopping, is a bit tired. Looking at the sparse streets of the supply town, Wu Yan sighed in a troubled manner. I'll go look for more. I don't have anything to do today anyway. After making up his mind, Wu Yan patted his cheeks to cheer himself up. He then walked down the street. Wu Yan scanned through the shops in an attempt to find Gouda and lollipops. They're considered rare items in the Spalier world, especially the former. It's not easy to find. That's the conclusion Wu Yan came to after 3 hours of shopping. After 3 hours of searching, Wu Yan suddenly had an idea. Would a normal shop sell Gouda and lollipops? Indeed, the reason why a trading company was called a trading company was because its scale had already developed to a certain extent. In such a trading company, how could one find things that belong to children like Gouda and lollipops? If you want to find these two items, it's better to go to the stalls or small shops. I'm so stupid. Bitterly laughing, he knocked his head and sighed again. Along with the sigh, he lost quite a bit of his strength. Wu Yan, who was sighing in the middle of the street, didn't notice that a figure appeared in a corner not far from him. The figure was staring at him with resentment. Found you. Wu Yan, In the middle of the street, Wu Yan stopped sighing. He turned around to look at the corner of the street, but he didn't see anything there. Wu Yan scratched his face and frowned. Am I mistaken? At this moment, an ear-piercing sound broke through the air. Along with a little magic fluctuation, it suddenly rushed out from the other corner and headed straight for Wu Yan. Although the magic fluctuation wasn't very strong, it made Wu Yan, who thought it was an illusion, shiver. He quickly looked in that direction, and a violent storm came into his sight. Wu Yan squinted his wine-red eyes. He didn't even try to dodge. Instead, he stomped on the ground. Suddenly, a magic flow that was several times stronger than the magic contained in the storm surged up violently. Wu Yan didn't use any special technique. He used the purest form of mana to meet the incoming storm head-on. Bang! It was as if a scorching airflow had collided with a gust of wind. The muffled sound reverberated in all directions along with the sound wave. The originally intact street was struck by the sound wave, and the ground within a 5-meter radius cracked open. The glass windows of the shops on both sides of the street were all shattered into pieces. A few of the unlucky ones who were closer to Wu Yan were stunned by the sound of the attack. Before they could react, the shockwave hit them and blew them away, leaving them moaning and groaning in pain. Luckily, the storm's target was Wu Yan, and he managed to block it in time. The attack didn't directly affect the people around him. Only the wind and waves that collided with each other were affected. Although some people were blown away, it didn't do much damage. However, the people on the street were blown all over the place, and screams of agony could be heard everywhere. From this, it could be seen that the storm's power wasn't that great. At most, it was 5th or 6th grade. Otherwise, Wu Yan wouldn't have blocked it with pure magic. Wu Yan also knew this, so he didn't pay attention to the people around him. Because of the sneak attack, he looked at the source of the storm. Soon after, he saw it, on the other side of the street, there was a young girl who wore a veil on her face. Her face couldn't be seen clearly, but she was around 17 or 18 years old. She had long, straight black hair that was like a waterfall. She was looking at him with eyes full of resentment. Chapter 10:21. Murder. Some cultivators are fighting. Run. The surrounding passers-by finally reacted to the sudden situation. One by one, they let out terrified screams. Some of them even turned pale. To these ordinary people, a battle between cultivators, even if it was a cultivator of the lowest level, was extremely destructive. If they were careless and got themselves involved with their ordinary bodies, they would be seriously injured for at least a few months. Because of the shock waves from the battles between practitioners, some commoners would die. Even though this didn't happen every day in Silveria, it wasn't a rare occurrence. Therefore, if a fight between practitioners were to happen, it would be no different from a disaster for the commoners who were unlucky enough to encounter it. Therefore, amidst the waves of horrified screams, the surrounding pedestrians did not care about their destination and directly ran towards the end of the street on both sides. Especially the few people who were blown away just now, they looked as if they hated their parents for not giving them 2 more legs. They ran as fast as they could. Not long after, the people at the scene ran away without a trace. Only a few other cultivators remained, as well as the 2 people who had caused all of this to happen facing each other from a distance. His ears are still ringing with the terrified screams of the commoners around him. His eyebrows are clouded over as he looked at the veiled girl in front of him and coldly opened his mouth. Although I don't know why you attacked me. Can't you see that there are so many commoners around? Although ordinary people were no different from ants to cultivators, they were still cultivators after all. Other than a few extremely evil people, cultivators would usually take into consideration that there were no ordinary people around when they fought, so as to avoid being implicated. It's not that cultivators are kind-hearted. It's just that if they knew that there were commoners around, they would hurt the weak commoners. How is that different from bullying others? Most of the cultivators had this mentality. Therefore, they would usually check the location of the battle. After all, they don't want to hurt the weak commoners for their own sake. Of course, that is excluding the evil people. The veiled girl was slightly taken aback. His gaze, which was filled with resentment, immediately dropped. A look of guilt appeared on her face. However, it was quickly replaced by hatred. Then, a light and ethereal voice came from under the young girl's veil. It slowly spread out. Since I didn't hurt anyone, if I don't vent my anger today, I won't give up. Vent your anger? Wu Yin was taken aback. He frowned and looked at the girl. How did I offend you? The girl didn't answer Wu Yan's question. Instead, she asked another question. Are you Wu Yin? Yes, I am Wu Yin. That's right. Strands of mana flowed out from the girl's slender body. She didn't give Wu Yin a chance to ask any more questions as she yelled at him. See if I don't kill you. Listening to the girl throwing a tantrum like a child, he opened his mouth, but he couldn't get angry no matter how hard he tried. Instead, he felt very conflicted. Wait, are you mistaken? I don't think I've ever offended a girl. Before he could finish his sentence, the girl's mouth under the veil started to move quickly. She released a sound that was as soft as a mosquito. At the same time, a storm that was even more ferocious than before rolled up from the girl's body. It was like a blooming lotus. It flashed with a green light and violently swept past like a tornado. Hey, Wu Yin wanted to say something. The tornado that was spinning crazily like a spinning spear pierced towards him mercilessly. F***CK. At that moment, Wu Yin could only curse gloomily. However, since he knew that there was something fishy about this matter, he naturally wouldn't make a move. Moreover, Wu Yin wasn't going to argue with a little girl. His expression is gloomy, but his body moved. He took a step forward, and instead of retreating, he moved closer to the incoming tornado. Following that, he lashed out with his leg. Like a whip, his leg flashed in front of him, and it landed heavily on the tornado that is not weak in the slightest. Pung! This kick, Wu Yin didn't use magic or superpower. He only used his physical strength to throw out this kick. However, it was this kick that sent the wind magic that was powerful enough to slice off a layer of the ground in the surrounding streets, flying away with a muffled sound. The wind magic changed direction and shot straight into the sky. Seeing this scene, the masked girl's eyes suddenly widened. Faintly, from her transparent veil, one could see that her mouth had turned into an O shape. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. My magic was actually sent flying with a kick. Looking at the girl's look of disbelief, Wu Yin bitterly smiled and shook his head. He was certain that he didn't know this girl, and this girl definitely didn't know him. If she did know him, even if she didn't know his strength, she should have heard of his deeds. She should know that he was once the strongest person in the Spalier World Academy, and that he killed Marcus and Andrew, who were both peak rank 8. It's impossible for someone who knows him not to know such a big event. Moreover, the information from the system is also very unfamiliar. Rena? Phelps, level 55. Rena? Phelps? I don't know her. What did I do to offend this girl? Phelps. Phelps. This surname, is she a member of the Phelps Empire's royal family? Wu Yin couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he racked his brain. He could only bitterly smile. But this bitter smile in Rena's ears sounded like mockery. Thus, Rena became angry. What's there to be proud of? This princess hasn't used her true strength yet. Without thinking, Rena yelled angrily. But due to her anger, she also leaked some useful information. This princess? Wu Yin raised an eyebrow. You're a member of the Phelps Empire's royal family? How did you know? Rena exclaimed out of reflex. Even though she regretted it, it confirmed Wu Yan's guess. All right, princess of the Phelps Empire. Wu Yan rubbed his brows as if he had a headache. Let's not talk about why you are in the Ailu Empire's territory and in a supply town. You should at least tell me how I offended you. What do you mean you're an elder? This princess is only 17 years old. Rena yelled, and the sound of gnashing her teeth came from under the veil. If you want to know, let this princess teach you a lesson first. Are you stupid, or am I stupid? Wu Yan rolled his eyes at Rena. Do you think that's possible? Even if it's impossible, it has to be possible. Rena declared like an unreasonable princess. In short, if I don't teach you a lesson, this princess will be angry. With that, Rena waved her slender hand, and a dazzling small green staff appeared in her hand. Moreover, magic powers surged within it. Rena had actually used her armament. Are you for real? Wu Yan's jaw dropped. He almost couldn't speak properly. Rena snorted and ignored Wu Yan. She channeled her mana into the magic staff, and the crystal at the tip lit up. Wu Yan saw that Rena was about to open her mouth to chant another spell. He quickly hid his shocked expression and clenched his teeth. Since he couldn't explain himself, he would have to take her down first. At the same time, Wu Yan didn't delay any longer. He channeled a trace of mana and activated a spatial teleportation spell. He disappeared from the spot. Rena only saw a blur in front of her eyes, and the detestable guy in her heart disappeared. Before she could react, the hand holding the staff suddenly felt weightless. Even his armament had disappeared. Rena's face was full of shock. At this time, a pitch-black halo suddenly fell from the sky and wrapped around her body. Then it suddenly contracted and trapped Rena, who was still in shock. What is this? Rena cried out in surprise. Only now did she realize that Wu Yan was standing beside her and pressing his hand on the pitch-black halo. You did this. Rena struggled with all her might. Let go of this princess. Wu Yan snorted. The corner of his mouth slowly raised into a smile that made Rena tremble in fear. Before that, I think we need to talk. Chapter 1022. Bang! Ouch! With a soft thud, Rena, who had a black ring around her body, flew through the air in a beautiful parabola. Then, she fell onto the soft bed amidst her screams of pain and surprise. Although the bed was soft and didn't hurt Rena, she was still thrown on it. No matter how soft the bed was, it couldn't prevent the vibration. Rena wasn't injured, but she was still dizzy from the vibration. But that wasn't important. What was important was where she was now, in a hotel room. Moreover, she was sharing a room with a man she hated to the core. Sitting up from the bed, Rena retreated to a corner at an unimaginable speed. Her delicate body curled into a ball, and she screamed with a restrained voice. You, why did you bring me here? What do you want to do? Wu Yan closed the door indifferently, but it was this sound that made Rena's body tremble exaggeratedly. Her big watery eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Rena retreated to the corner of the bed and looked at him like he was a beast. Wu Yan's mouth twitched. He took a deep breath and walked over. Stop right there, Rena shouted when she saw Wu Yan approaching. I'm warning you. If you dare to touch me, I'll ask my father to cut you into pieces. Hearing that, Wu Yan couldn't stand it anymore. You call yourself a princess, but your head is full of evil thoughts. Do you think a man will touch you? Hearing Wu Yan's words, Rena was a little angry, but she was relieved and tilted her head in confusion. Then why did you bring me to such a dirty place? What a filthy place. Wu Yin resisted the urge to roll his eyes as he casually sat on the edge of the bed. Didn't I tell you? Let's talk. Talk? Rena was stunned. She snorted and turned her head away. I have nothing to talk about with you. Oh, is that so? Wu Yin smirked and rubbed his chin. He started looking at Rena's body. Rena has a good figure. Her body is slender, but her curves are smooth. Her exposed thighs shone with a white sheen. Her breasts are also well endowed. Ikaros, Astria, and the other girls with great figures are better than her. She's much better than Kurumi and almost as good as Shoko Misaki. She has a pair of big round eyes and long black hair. Wu Yin didn't take off Rena's veil, but he's sure she's a beauty. Also, she said she's only 17 years old, right? Rena's body at 17 years old. She's practically the second Lulu. Wu Yin couldn't help showing a look of admiration as he sized her up. Lana caught it by accident. Rena's face. Don't look at this princess with those dirty eyes of yours. Wu Yin raised his head and looked at Rena. He blinked and smiled. You can't take it? There's still a good show coming. What do you want to do? At this moment, even Rena couldn't help but feel afraid. You better not mess around. Otherwise, you will definitely die a very, very miserable death. Imperial Father will definitely not let you off. Father. Wu Yin rolled his eyes. Since you're calling him Father, you must be the daughter of Fea, Empire's Emperor, right? Why, that's right. Rena's courage increased when Ailu Empire's Emperor was mentioned. I'm the biological daughter of Fea, Empire's Emperor. Moreover, I am his only biological daughter. Imperial Father loves this princess the most, so you better let this princess go. Otherwise, Imperial Brother will definitely tear you apart before Imperial Father does anything. He also loves this princess the most. Brother? Wu Yin ignored Rena's weak threat. Who's your brother? My brother is the Prince of Fea Empire, Kaya Fea. Fea. Kakaya. Wu Yin looked at Lana, who was looking at him with a smug expression. You're Kaya's sister. Can I? Perhaps it was because Rena had revealed her background, but she returned to her unruly state. Wu Yin didn't have the time to care. He frowned and asked after some hesitation. Then, are you looking for trouble because I defeated your brother in Spalier World Academy? Who cares if he dies? Rena, who was planning to use her brother's name to scare Wu Yin, immediately blurted out such a declaration. She was stunned for a moment before exclaiming, You said you defeated my brother. You don't know. Wu Yan's expression turned into one of amusement. Since you have such strength, you should be a student of Spalier World Academy, right? Haven't you heard of me? Do I have to hear of you? Rena curled her lips in disdain. I am indeed a student of Spalier World Academy. I just took a 3-month leave. Wu Yin felt relieved. No wonder this wild brat hasn't heard of him. She took such a long leave of absence. I haven't been a student of Spalier World Academy for more than 3 months. In other words, I went in as soon as this girl took a leave, and she came back after I left. There were all kinds of coincidences. Helplessly shaking his head, Wu Yin sighed. Since you don't hate me because I defeated Kaya, what did I do to offend you? What? What did I do to offend you? Wu Yan's reminder reminded Lana of the reason why she came looking for trouble with him. Her face turned green and her eyes burned with rage. She started struggling with all her might. How dare you ask me what I did to offend you? Damn bastard. Let me go. I'm going to teach you a lesson. I think you're the one who needs to be taught a lesson the most. Wu Yin was pissed when Rena didn't answer his questions. You better tell me the truth or I'll throw you out on the streets. You dare. Why wouldn't I? Wu Yin sneered. That's right. By the way, let me tell you something. I still won't release the shackles on your body. If you want to wait for it to disappear on its own, it will take at least 8 to 10 days. During this period of time, I think there will be people who will be very, very interested in you who can't resist you. Lana's expression changed. Wu Yin didn't look like he was faking it. She gulped and her eyes were filled with anger. Damn it, Why would someone like you be Sister Sylph's fiancé? Sylph? Wu Yin was surprised to hear this name. He asked Lana in a surprised tone, "Are you looking for trouble with me, because you think I'm not good enough for Sylph?" "Yes, of course. Sister Sylph is so beautiful, so noble, so powerful, and so sacred. You're not worthy of her. Even your clothes are cheap. How can you be worthy of her?" Lana retorted, "You're not worthy of her at all. Even your clothes are cheap." Wu Yin almost choked on his breath. His expression became more and more interesting. His lips kept twitching, and his eyebrows kept twitching. He looked at Lana, who was glaring at him like she wanted to bite off a chunk of his flesh. After holding back for a while, he finally managed to squeeze out a sentence. "You don't know me, so why do you think I'm not good enough for Sylph? Are you stupid? Are you an idiot?" Lana gave Wu Yin a look of disdain. Then, her gaze turned into a heated one. "Sister Sylph is as noble as a lotus on a snowy mountain. Her beauty can make heaven and earth lose its color. Her gaze can make all things sing, and her voice can make everyone scream. Even her body is blessed by the sun. She is the most beautiful and powerful ice queen in the Spalier world." After saying that, Rena's tone of adoration changed, and she became fierce again. How can a man be good enough for someone as good as Sister Sylph? Wu Yin pressed down on his chest, suppressing the urge to vomit blood when he heard such words that can't be ignored. "Don't tell me you're lesbian? You're the lesbian? Your whole family are lesbians. I just can't bear to leave Sister Sylph's side. How could I be a lesbian?" Lana said with a smirk. "You're a lesbian." Wu Yin roared in his mind. Chapter 1023. As noon approached, there were more and more people in the supply town. Most of them are natives of the supply town. Only a small portion of them came here to purchase behemoth forest resources. After all, the behemoth forest resources can only be used in two ways. One is to transport them to King City. The other is to store them in the supply town and let the resources flow to the entire Ailu Empire. That's why the supply town didn't become a place for people to live in. Without the giant beast forest resources, a lot of businesses would close down and the town wouldn't be worthy of the word supply anymore. However, as the flow of people increased, the pedestrians on one of the streets of the supply town all moved to the sides, leaving a large space in the middle of the street. It was as if some royal family was passing by. However, the people's shocked and curious gazes were telling others that the visitor wasn't someone worthy of respect. "Let go of me! Let go of me!" Rena shouted at Wu Yin, who was walking in front of her, as if she was about to cry. Her face was red, as if a flower thief was about to make a move on her. Only her angry eyes were silently accusing and proving something. Sensing the curious, shocked, and confused gazes from the crowd around her, as well as the way they looked at each other and whispered to each other, Rena felt that she had really embarrassed herself. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. Of course, Rena felt embarrassed, because at this moment, the pitch-black halo around Rena's body still hasn't disappeared. No, not only did it not disappear, there is also a rope tied to the front part of the black halo, and the other end of the rope is in Wu Yan's hand. In other words, Rena, the princess of the Faya Empire, was a noble. She's being dragged around by someone like a dog. How could Rena not feel humiliated? Fortunately, Rena still has some self-awareness. She didn't shout out this princess in front of everyone. Otherwise, the commotion she caused at that time wouldn't be as dramatic as it was now. Instead, it would be a real big commotion. Furthermore, Rena couldn't shout those words either. Now, in other people's eyes, at most, she was a young girl who was tied up with a rope. However, if she called out this princess, then she would become a princess who was tied up with a rope. If that really happened, where she put her face, even if the people around her didn't know her identity, she still felt embarrassed. She twisted her body desperately, trying to break free from the strange halo that could imprison her mana. However, she had been struggling for an entire hour since she left the hotel, and the halo didn't loosen at all. She wanted to cry, but no tears came out. "Let go of me!" Rena screamed frantically. "Aren't you afraid I will take revenge? You already did your best to get back at me. Wu Yin didn't even turn his head as he sneered. If I let you go, what are you going to do? Do you even need to ask? Of course I'm going to teach you a lesson. I'm going to show Sister Sylph that you're a piece of trash who can't even beat a 17-year-old girl. I'm going to cut all ties with you and cut all ties with you. Oh, Wu Yin turned around with a surprised look on his face. I thought you were going to say, of course I'm going to kill you to save Sister Sylph. That's what I'm going to say. Rena paused for a moment before a look of realization dawned on her face. All right, I didn't know there was such a way. Wu Yan's mouth twitched. He rolled his eyes at Rena. I'm sure you're not only a lesbian, you're a completely unqualified lesbian. You're the lesbian? What makes you think I'm unqualified? Rena raised an eyebrow. Her contradictory words made the people around her laugh. Of course you're unqualified. Wu Yin recalled something, and his expression turned sour. A real lesbian should call the person she's a lesbian to be her lady big sister. Every day, she'll look for an opportunity to rub against her lady big sister's modest chest. She'll think about pushing her lady big sister down all the time and look for an opportunity to drug her. She can even accept being whipped by her lady big sister. When she meets someone who intends to touch her lady big sister, she'll say things like, I'll stuff you underground, or as her lady big sister's personal bodyguard, my mission is to defeat all the apes who intend to touch her lady big sister. Wu Yin spouted a string of strange words into Rena's ears. She was stunned. She even thought she was unqualified. That seems to make sense. Rena nodded thoughtfully. Not long after, she raised her head abruptly and said excitedly, all right, Rena will call Big Sister Sylph Big Sister from now on. Wu Yin, who was walking in front, almost tripped and fell to the ground. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and felt a little guilty. Could it be that he had raised a pure lily into a pure pervert? What a sin! Wu Yin shook his head and drew a cross in front of his chest. He muttered as if he was atoning for his sins. Sylph, don't blame me. I was just complaining. I hope you can live your life as usual. Rena saw Wu Yin muttering and shouted in dissatisfaction. Hey, what are you muttering over there for? Nothing. Wu Yin rolled his eyes and noticed the veil on Rena's face. He narrowed his eyes and asked, all right, why are you wearing a veil? Are you ashamed of your appearance? You're the one who's ashamed of your appearance. Rena jumped up like a cat whose tail was stepped on. I don't know how beautiful I am. How can a cheap thing like you know how to appreciate my beauty? Cheap thing. The veins on Wu Yan's forehead bulged. If you're not ashamed of your appearance, then why are you wearing a veil? Do you think I'm willing to do that? Lana's tone became indignant. I was fine when I first came to Ailu. Who knows if the men in this empire ate the wrong medicine? Every time they see me, they stick to me like flies. It's disgusting. If it wasn't for the fact that I have no other choice, I wouldn't want to be a masked person. Interesting. Wu Yin raised an eyebrow. Even flies stick to you. Looks like you're pretty good looking, of course. Rena's eyebrows danced. I'm a princess after all. How can I not be pretty? You really do shine with a little sunshine. Wu Yin shook his head with a chuckle. He tugged on a rope and continued forward. Hey, Lana yelled when Wu Yin pulled her along with a rope. Where are you taking me? Of course. Wu Yin pursed his lips. I'm taking you back to the camp. Back to the camp? Wu Yin nodded and glanced at Rena. I wanted to let you go so we can go our separate ways. But if I do that, you'll come after me again, won't you? Of course. If I don't ask you to annul your betrothal with Sister Sylph, I won't let you get away with it. Lana said haughtily. That's right. Wu Yin sighed. That's why I can't just let you go, but I can't just leave you here either. I can only bring you back to the camp and hand you over to the people in charge. They will send you back to Fea Empire or Silverio World Institute. What? You're sending me back? Rena screamed and started struggling again. No, no, no. I don't want to go back. Why are you so resistant? Wu Yin quickly pulled on the rope to prevent it from slipping away. Did you sneak out? That's not true. Rena shouted stubbornly as she struggled. You haven't canceled your engagement with Sister Sylph yet. How can I go back unless you cancel your engagement with her? I think you should just give up. Wu Yin pursed his lips. Even though I was confused about the engagement, Sylph herself hasn't canceled her engagement yet. Why are you making such a fuss about it? Impossible. Sister Sylph wouldn't be interested in a cheap piece of trash like you. Rena screamed and struggled. Let go of me. Ignoring Lana's antics, Wu Yin pulled Lana along, and they headed towards the giant beast forest camp. Chapter 1024. Behemoth Forest Encampment. So this is Ailu Empire's Behemoth Forest Encampment? Standing outside the camp, Rena's curiosity was immediately replaced by boredom as she looked at the camp that was filled with tents, weapons, and guards who were patrolling back and forth. Apart from that, there was nothing special about the camp. It's so shabby. Wu Yin rolled his eyes as he glared at Lana with an exasperated look. This is an encampment, not a castle. Do you think there are golden walls and war chariots? There should at least be a fence, Rena said in a matter-of-fact tone. If the demonic beasts go berserk and rush into the encampment, we'll be in trouble. You think a fence can stop a bunch of rampaging demonic beasts? Wu Yin pursed his lips. Lana wasn't convinced by his words. It's better than having nothing and exposing the encampment to the outside world, right? Wu Yin turned around when he heard Lana. He stared at Lana so intensely that if she wasn't restrained by the black ring, she would have covered her chest with her hands. Why are you looking at me like that? You can't take it anymore. Yeah, I can't take it anymore. Wu Yan's mouth twitched. I really can't take it anymore. What do you mean? Little princess, even if you haven't been to Faya Empire's encampment, even if you don't know what the encampment looks like, you don't have to be so shallow. Rena's eyes were filled with anger. Wu Yan pointed at the encampment in front of them. Take a closer look. Do you really think there's nothing here? Lana wrinkled her nose. She subconsciously looked at the campsite again under Wu Yan's guidance. Her expression turned serious. She finally noticed that something is wrong. The encampment looked like it only had tents and guards. However, not far from the encampment, there was a fluorescent light. It was blinking. That is, when Rena saw the fluorescent light clearly, she was stunned. Then, she was astonished. A barrier. Good. It's not a waste of your 6th-tier power. Wu Yin sighed. Fences, walls, war chariots. How can they compare to a barrier? I see. Lana nodded in realization. She paused, and she looked at Wu Yin with a suspicious look. Right? How do you know I'm 6th tier? Wu Yin smiled bitterly at Rena's question. Do you think everyone is like you, rushing forward blindly without understanding the strength of the other party? What? You make it sound like it's something amazing. Rena yelled unhappily. Then why don't you tell me how powerful you are? What's your tier? What's the level of your armament? Are you a sorcerer or a warrior? Wu Yin rubbed his head as if he has a headache. Heavens, it's fine if you don't even know if I'm a mage or a warrior, but you still want to cause trouble for me? I have to hand it to you. Rena rolled her eyes and giggled. If that's the case, why don't you let me go? Wu Yin looked at Lana like she's an idiot. She was infuriated by the way Wu Yin looked at her. I'm warning you, don't look at me like that again. Otherwise, I'll get angry. When this princess is angry, even she is afraid of herself. It's scary. Looking at the angry yelling at him, he thought, what? Rena was glaring at him fiercely with her big round eyes, baring her teeth like a spoiled kitten. Wu Yin couldn't help but laugh out loud. He nodded like he's serious about it. Indeed, it's scary. Ignoring Lana's flushed face, Wu Yin pulled the rope and brought this wild princess back to his tent. Lana's loud and coquettish scolding caused ripples in the air, attracting the attention of the surrounding guards. There is a rule in the camp that the guards are not allowed to bring outsiders into the camp. Violators will be punished severely. This is a rule that every guard has to abide by. When they saw someone bringing an outsider into the camp, the guards wanted to stop the intruder, but when they saw that it was Wu Yin, they exchanged glances with each other, and they walked away while whistling like it was nothing out of the ordinary. If he dared to kill the person in charge of the camp, would the guards dare to cause trouble for him if he brought an outsider in? They would probably turn a blind eye to it. Even if the people in charge of the camp had a way to deal with Wu Yin, they wouldn't dare to offend a demon like him. It's better to pretend they didn't see anything. Under the watchful eyes of the guards, Wu Yin brought Rena to his tent. When Wu Yin was about to bring Rena to the public tent, Rena let out an ear-piercing scream. It almost shocked Wu Yin to the ground. "What's wrong with you?" Lana ignored Wu Yan's scolding. Her eyes bulged as she stared at the tents in front of her. To be more precise, she stared at the Misaka sisters who are busy with their chores. Her mouth that is hidden under her veil is wide open and her eyes are filled with disbelief. They all look. Wu Yin finally understood that Lana was frightened by the sisters who looked exactly the same as her. Sigh. Wu Yin patted his chest and sighed helplessly. "What did I do wrong? Why did I have to deal with a wild girl like her? It's bad for my heart." Yin. At this time, the entrance to the public tent was opened, and Hanajuku, Mikoto, Shoko Misaki, Kotori, Kurumi, and the rest of the girls ran out. "Yin, what's wrong?" I heard a scream. The more impatient Hanajuku and Mikoto ran towards Wu Yin as soon as they came out. While running, they started asking questions, but when they saw Lana being tied up by a certain wolf, they stopped in their tracks. Even their mouths were frozen in place. Their impatient faces darkened. Alalala. Kurumi acted as if she was frightened, but her wine-red eyes that weren't covered by her bangs revealed a deep smile, betraying her true thoughts. "Did Aotsusama capture other girls because we couldn't satisfy Aotsusama's appetite? What a surprise, what a surprise." Not just Kurumi, even Shokuho Misaki looked at Wu Yan with a half-smile. Unlike Kurumi, she didn't seem to be smiling at all. "I didn't expect you to bring a girl back after just a short while. You even did it in such a way. Yan, is this your hobby?" As expected of Aotsusama, despite her praise, Kotori's lips curled into an evil grin. Clearly, her words didn't match her true feelings. Nah. Both Hanajuku and Mikoto's gloomy expression changed into a bright smile, saying so. "Aren't you going to explain?" When he saw the girls looking at him with sharp eyes, it was as if they were considering where to cut him first. Wu Yin shuddered, and he quickly let go of the rope in his hand. He said in a flustered manner, Wait. This is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding." The girls listened attentively, but they didn't say anything. Shokuho Misaki and Kurumi were still smiling, as if Wu Yin was doing a good deed. However, Wu Yin knew that without a good reason, the two girls wouldn't mind adding insult to injury, even if they didn't want to. Wu Yin smiled bitterly. To prevent unnecessary misunderstandings, he released Lana from the rope and prepared to explain himself. What he didn't expect was that as soon as the rope was released, something unexpected happened. Lana let out another ear-piercing shriek. Everyone was shocked, but before they could react, they saw. With a speed faster than anyone could react, Lana turned into a blur, rushed towards Ikaros, who hadn't said a word, and grabbed her hand. "Hey, sister, what's your name?" Everyone was stunned. Chapter 1025. Wu Yin and the other girls fell silent when they saw Lana looking at Ikaros with her starry eyes. She clasped Ikaros' hand and acted like she's in a trance. Ikaros was also stunned. She couldn't figure out what was going on. Her pitiful face was filled with confusion. Her indigo eyes looked at Rena, who was holding her hands, asking her silently, "What's going on? What's going on?" However, under the gaze of Ikaros' expressive indigo eyes, Lana moaned as if she was electrocuted. Even with a veil covering her face, everyone could see it clearly. Under the transparent scarf, there was a sparkling and translucent liquid that was slowly flowing down from Rena's mouth. "It's saliva." Hey, big sister. Rena, who had completely lost her composure, giggled like an idiot. "What's your name? Can you tell Rena?" Ikaros stared blankly at Rena, but she still answered her question. "Ikaros. Is your name Ikaros? Is that so?" Rena's pretty face abruptly moved forward, her eyes shining brightly. She looked like that. Even Ikaros couldn't take it anymore. "What a beautiful name. You're beautiful. So is your name." Lana stuck her head on Ikaros' body like a pig. Saliva dripped from the corner of her mouth, but Lana didn't notice. She kept rubbing her head against Ikaros' body, almost rubbing her face against Ikaros. You, what should I do?" Rena already has big sister Sylph, and now she has big sister Ikaros. Is Rena really a bad girl? Ugh, what should I do? That's what she said. Rena's face showed a blissful expression that couldn't be hidden even with a veil covering her face. In the next moment, a second stream of saliva flowed out from under the scarf. Oomph, 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 oomph. It's flowing out. Ma, master. Rena passively accepted Rena's actions. Ikaros, who didn't know how to refuse, looked at Wu Yin for help. However, Wu Yin didn't have the time to care about Ikaros. He was petrified by the scene in front of him. He already knew Rena was a Yuri. He didn't expect her to be a true Yuri and not a pervert like Kuriko. Kuriko was only interested in Mikoto. She would only turn into a lesbian in front of Mikoto, but in front of other girls, her orientation was normal. But looking at Rena, it was obvious that she was different from Blackie. Not only was she cute to Sylph, but her interest was also effective for other girls. In other words, Rena is a true Yuri with an abnormal sexual orientation. Ikaros didn't know what to do as Lana rubbed her face against Ikaros. The other girls took a step back out of reflex, including Flander-chan, Yoshino, Astria, and Toka. Mikoto's body was trembling as she stared at Lana with caution. Sparks of electricity appeared on her forehead as she stared at Lana with a wary expression. Needless to say, this Yuri who was abused by her perverted roommate must have recalled her painful past. There's no doubt Mikoto wouldn't mind giving Rena a love whip if she dares to jump on top of Mikoto. Hey! Kotori glanced at Wu Yin with a sharp gaze. What's going on with that woman? Aha! Wu Yin chuckled dryly. He couldn't keep his cool. It's just like what you saw. Now you can rest assured that there's nothing going on between us, right? That kind of thing doesn't matter. Hinajiku, who almost turned black, glanced at Rena, who kept squeezing herself into Ikaros' arms, and Ikaros, whose eyes were filled with panic under Rena's teasing. She raised her voice slightly. Don't you think you should go help Ikaros? The girls went silent for a moment before they looked at Wu Yin. Wu Yin shook his head without hesitation. If there's a way to control that wild brat, I wouldn't have to tie her up. Wu Yin suddenly remembered something and turned to Mikoto. Mikoto, you go. Why? Mikoto jumped up. You have more experience. Who has experience? I don't need that kind of experience. Aya, why are you being so humble? You should be happy that you can help Ikaros. That's true, but I don't want to get close to that girl. You're the only one who can save Ikaros now. All you have to do is pull her away and Ikaros will be saved. You were going to say sacrifice, right? Sacrifice, right. That must be it. In any case, it's time for you to make your entrance. Why does my appearance have to be said at such an uncomfortable time? Also, what's the meaning of that pause? While Ikaros' situation is still unresolved, Wu Yin and Mikoto's situation is already starting to get rowdy. The girls looked at each other. They looked at Lana, who has turned into an idiot, and then they looked at Ikaros, who has a troubled look on her face. For a moment, the girls didn't know what to do with themselves. In the end, the most courageous and kindest Kaishu-sama stood up. Hey, you! Chuju walked up to Ikaros and Rena with her hands on her hips and a sharp look on her face. Ikaros is very troubled right now. Can you please not make things difficult for her? Rena, who was squeezing Ikaros' body, suddenly stopped and turned around. Her eyes were filled with displeasure. However, when she saw Chuju, who was emitting an oppressive aura, she froze for a moment. Then, the displeasure in her eyes disappeared and was replaced with passion. Feeling Rena's burning gaze, Chuju's body stiffened and a bad premonition rose in her heart. And the facts proved that her ominous premonition was completely correct. So cool, so handsome, so strong. Muttering these words, Lana crossed her arms in front of her chest and abandoned Ikaros without hesitation. She came to Hinajiku's side with twinkling little stars in her eyes. Dear sister, can you tell Raina your name? Her delicate body trembled, then trembled again. Her gaze met with Rena's eyes that seemed to want to swallow her whole. Finally, Hinajiku couldn't maintain her calm. She took a few steps back, and a drop of cold sweat dripped down her forehead. My name is Chuju. Dear Sister Chuju. When Hinajiku retreated, Lana immediately followed, closing in on her. The expression in her eyes constantly changed, until finally it turned into longing. No, I can't. Lana raised her head and leaped towards Hinajiku. Reina can't hold it in anymore. Wah. Daisy didn't expect Rena to do such a thing. She only had time to let out a miserable cry before she was pushed to the ground by Rena. You. Reina moaned as she sat on top of Chuju and sniffed around with her little nose. What nice smell. I can't. Reina is going to eat. What? What are you doing? Being straddled by a woman. Hinajiku couldn't keep her cool. Her face flushed red. Hinajiku wanted to scold her and stop her, but before she could open her mouth, the scolding in her throat turned into a moan. That's because Reina sucked on Chuju's ear. No, don't. Ugh. You. That's great. Here. And here. Wait. What are you doing? You. That's. Don't touch. No. Following Hinajiku's uncontrollable moans and Reina's excited gasps, the surrounding space was suddenly enveloped in a pink and ambiguous atmosphere. Everyone present was shocked on the spot, including the Misaka sisters who were watching from the sidelines. Watching Hinajiku being toyed with by Reina, the girls couldn't help but gulp, cold sweat dripping down their backs. Among them, Makoto's situation was the most serious. Even her back was drenched in sweat. Thank God I didn't go up. The girls didn't say anything else. Instead, they glanced at each other and quietly retreated until they were at a safe distance away. Only then did they spread their feet out in unison. They ran away. Looking at the girls who ran away and the blooming lilies in front of him, Wu Yin was silent for a while. He found a place and sat down. How could he not enjoy such a beautiful scene? Chapter 1026. He. The entire tent was filled with Rena's silly laughter. It was as if she was a lone lunatic who had escaped from a mental hospital. Her laughter gave people goosebumps that they couldn't help but feel uncontrollable. At this moment, Rena was lying on the table in the tent. Her mouth, which was covered by a veil, could not help but let out a silly laugh. Her laughter was full of joy, as if she was a child who had secretly eaten something good. Her eyes were blurred, and the blush on her pretty face was directly reflected on the transparent veil. Coupled with her creepy laughter, it was very suggestive. Hinajiku, on the other hand, was sitting in a corner with her head lowered. Her pink bangs covered her face, making it hard for others to see her expression. However, the gloomy aura that lingered around Hinajiku made it so that no one dared to approach her. Wu Yin and the girls looked at Chuju and then at Rena, who was once again trapped by the black ring. They looked at each other with resentment and didn't know how to react. Something terrible just happened. Misaka 13674 puffed up her chest and said to the other Misakas, "Your information is outdated." Misaka 17788 made a mocking declaration. "Misaka, I've already heard that a sister was pushed down." Misaka 12976 tried to extract as much information as possible. She shared it with the other Misakas. Why wasn't Misaka there? Misaka 10414 was very unwilling to give up. She asked the other Misakas to share the information with her. Misaka was there at the time, and she even recorded everything that happened. Misaka 5392 took out a notebook from her bosom and proudly showed it off to all the other Misakas. Misaka 5392 is very cunning. Misaka 9987 made a stern reprimand and thought of how to get the notebook from Misaka 5392. Misaka 7747 made a request to borrow the notebook from Misaka 5392. Misaka 17,377 agreed. Misaka 9,919 concurred. Misaka 10,032 concurred. Outside the tent, the Misaka sisters' undisguised conversation was heard by everyone, causing everyone's expressions to turn awkward. In his heart, He couldn't wait to drag those Misaka sisters out and strip them naked, and at the same time, run a circle around their tents. Since Wei Yin and Ko can hear it, Hinajika naturally can as well. Her delicate body shuddered violently, but she quickly returned to normal. However, she lowered her head even lower and the gloomy aura around her became even denser. Looking at Chuju like this, they all wanted to cry. The girls looked at each other and wanted to say something to comfort Hinajiku, but they were just deserters, and if they went up now, it would only trigger the gloomy atmosphere. Therefore, no one dared to talk to Chuju. Makoto snuck up to Wu Yin and growled in a low voice. "We can't let this go on. You think of a way." "Now you want me to think of a way?" Wu Yin laughed coldly. Of course, he also lowered his voice. "Then why didn't you go and save Hinajiku? If you had, Hinajiku wouldn't have been violated like that." Shokoho Misaki appeared on the other side of Wu Yin. She covered her mouth with her hand. Her eyes were full of meaning. "I remember you were having a good time watching the show." Wu Yin's expression turned awkward, but he quickly regained his composure. "At least I didn't abandon Chuju. You all ran away one by one. Guys who only know how to find excuses are the worst." Shokoho Misaki scolded. "Besides, Chuju is your woman. Shouldn't you be consoling her?" "I want to—" Wu Yin pursed his lips and continued. "I'm just worried that Hinajiku will take it out on me later." "Don't tell me she can't do it. You guys know she can." Makoto and Shokoho Misaki were speechless. Wu Yin, however, Kurumi spoke up. Outsisama. You were the one who brought that guy back. Shouldn't you take responsibility?" Stop it. Stop it." Wu Yin waved his hand angrily. "I'm already regretting it." "Is that so?" Shokoho Misaki glanced at Wu Yin. She saw through his thoughts. "But why do I feel like you're really happy?" Wu Yin froze. After putting some distance between them, Makoto berated him in a low voice. "You're so bad." Hey. Wu Yin sweated. "Don't make it sound like it's all my fault, okay?" These words caused the girls to explode in unison. "This is your fault, I say." Hinajiku slowly raised her head and glanced at the crowd with an expressionless face. "Can you guys please lower your voices? I need some time to myself." In an instant, everyone's mouths shut up. Just as the atmosphere in the tent gradually turned deathly silent, a sweet and mature voice, with a hint of doubt, echoed throughout the entire tent. "It's really surprising to see such a strange scene as soon as we come back. Did we miss something?" Holding a parasol and wearing a pink and white dress, her beautiful fairy-like figure was imprinted in everyone's eyes, causing joy to appear in everyone's eyes. "Yukari, you're back." "Well, I'm back." Yukari tilted her head and smiled seductively. "But compared to that, can anyone explain to us what's going on? Who's that girl over there?" "That's—" Wu Yin and the other girls all revealed awkward expressions. They laughed awkwardly, making the already weird scene even weirder. "Yukari, you're just in time." To change the topic, Wu Yin clumsily walked to Yukari and pouted at Chuju. "We're troubled right now. Please help us comfort Hinajiku." "Comfort?" Yukari glanced at Chuju and looked at Wu Yin with a faint smile. "Although we don't know what's going on, it's best not to provoke her now. You'll die miserably, as expected of the sage of the fairies. Even if we don't know the reason, we can still see the situation." "Ah!" Lana, who was lying on the table, heard an unfamiliar voice. She looked towards Yukari's direction, and her eyes lit up like light bulbs. She screamed again without hesitation, causing Wu Yin and the girls to fall to the ground. Who is this wild girl trying to harm this time? While the group of people were roaring these words in their hearts, Reina actually jumped up from the table as if she was assisted by God. With a leap, she arrived in front of Purple. "What a beautiful big sister. You're as beautiful as Big Sister Sylph and Big Sister Ikaros." Lana looked at Yukari pitifully. She rubbed her head against Yukari's chest. "Big sister, Lana likes you so much. Please marry Lana. Lana will be good to you." Wu Yin and Ko, who just got up from the ground, shivered, and their legs gave out as they fell back down to the ground. Even Hinajiku, who was in the dark, shook her shoulders in an exaggerated manner. She recalled the scene where she got F***ed by a girl. Her face darkened and the dark aura around her became even denser. Just when everyone thought that Violet couldn't handle this Lily, who would have thought that after being stunned for a moment, Violet would smile. Her smile was exceptionally sweet. Ah la la la, I didn't expect little sister to like this too. You like this too? Everyone was stunned. You like this too? Lana was stunned for a moment before she reacted with excitement. Could it be that big sister is also? Yukari raised her paper fan and placed it under Rena's chin in a very flirtatious manner. She slowly lifted the veil on her face. The next moment, a delicate and cute face with a hint of childishness appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Oh, not bad. You're almost as pretty as Ling Ming. Yukari licked her lips and let go of the parasol. Yukari's face curved into a smile, and her free hand reached into Lana's clothes. Ugh. The girls lying on the ground blushed. They didn't know if they should look or not. In the end, they just buried their faces in the ground and refused to get up. Wu Yin was the only one admiring the blooming lilies while praising them in his heart. Our little sister Yukari is really the best. Chapter 10:27. So comfortable. Era. I didn't think someone as young as you would have such a model. Ah, that's. Let's have a good taste. Big sister. Listening to Yukari's teasing tone and Lana's moaning and moaning, the girls lying on the ground felt like they were about to explode from shame. Even Wu Yan's heart started beating faster. Just as Wu Yan was about to lose his temper, a small hand tugged at Wu Yan's clothes. When Wu Yan turned around, Flander-chan's crystal-clear red eyes entered his line of sight, filled with curiosity. Hey, Oni-chan. Flander-chan looked at Wu Yan expectantly. Flan has been wanting to ask you this for a while now. What is that big sister playing with the other big sisters? Who knows where she came from? It looks like it's going to be fun. Wu Yan's face twitched. He laughed dryly. In nothing, that's a game played by bad kids. Flander-chan mustn't imitate them. Really? Flander-chan put on a distrustful expression. Then why do the big sisters have to play the game of bad kids? Huh. Aha! Wu Yan awkwardly scratched his cheeks, his eyes rolled, and he said to Flander-chan, ever since that big sister came, the big sisters have been led astray by her. So Flander-chan, as a good girl, you better stay away from that big sister. You'll be led astray. So it's that big sister who led the other big sisters astray. Flander-chan showed a look of realization, and then a bloody glint flashed across her red eyes. Then let Flander-chan play with her. That way she won't be able to lead the other big sisters astray. Wu Yan was shocked. Flander-chan doesn't look like she's joking. He quickly said, Flander-chan, Flander-chan. Be a good girl, Flander-chan. Just watch from the side. I have a way to deal with that big sister. I see. Flander-chan smiled innocently. She threw herself into Wu Yan's arms and rubbed her head against his chest. Her face was filled with happiness. Sure enough, Big Brother is the best. I have a way to deal with the bad guys. Wu Yan sweated profusely and patted Flander-chan's back. He gently placed her on the ground. She immediately ran to Z's side. He pulled her out of the soft country covered with lilies. All right, Yukari, Fran, and Yoshino are still here. Don't be a bad influence on children. Violet pursed her lips, curled her lips, and turned her head away, releasing her hand from Rena's clothes. Rena immediately fell to the ground, panting, and her cheeks were already covered in a rose-like red. The girls lying on the ground heaved a sigh of relief and began to stand up. Only Chuju, who was sitting in the corner, suddenly raised her head and stared at Wu Yan. Why didn't you come and save me when I was being bullied? Fran and Yoshino were there too. If it were me, wouldn't I be a bad influence? His voice, which was filled with resentment, was extremely soft. However, it was clearly transmitted into everyone's ears, causing them to smile bitterly. In order to dispel the awkward atmosphere, Wu Yan patted his face and became serious. How was it? Did you find anything after going out? The girls gathered their focus and turned serious. It's not clear if they're trying to dispel the awkward atmosphere like Wu Yan, but they do know why Yukari went out. Zihuan glanced at the crowd and nodded casually. Well, I did find something. She gently waved the paper fan in her hand, and a tiny gap opened up in the air in front of everyone. Under everyone's gaze, a transparent cube object emitting golden light flew out from the gap and landed in Yukari's hand. Everyone took a closer look. Only then did they realize that within this transparent cube object, there were black lights that were twisting and dancing around like worms. This is... Before the girls could react, Wu Yan's expression changed. Oh, she narrowed her eyes and nodded. It seems like you recognize this thing, Yan. The girls flinched and looked at Wu Yan in surprise. Only a few of them who reacted fast enough seemed to have recalled something as their expressions changed. This... Shokuha Misaki and Kotori looked at each other before looking at Wu Yan. The last time you killed Marcus, the black light that flew out of his body and was tracked by you should be the same as this one, right? Wu Yan didn't answer. He silently agreed. He looked at the black lights and frowned. He raised his head and met Yukari's gaze. Yukari, is this the ominous aura you sensed in the behemoth forest? That's right. Purple put away the quadruple barrier in her hand, and a trace of seriousness appeared on her face. Originally, I sensed that there were many similar auras in that forest, but after I put them away, those auras all disappeared. They all. The girls looked at each other. Disappeared? Wu Yan frowned and looked at Yukari. Yukari, tell us what happened in the behemoth forest. Yukari pondered for a moment and told everyone about how she killed the ferocious-looking monsters in the stone forest and how she collected the black light from them. However, she didn't tell them about her encounter with the 5 demigods from Silveria. Wu Yan told Yukari how they got involved with Marcus, how he turned Marcus into a monster, how he killed him, and how he found out that the black light was the culprit. After both sides finished their explanations, the place fell into silence. Everyone looked like they were deep in thought, except for the 2 gluttons and the 2 lowless. I'm afraid that there are quite a few of these black lights in the giant beast forest, Shokuha Misaki said with a serious expression on her face. What are these black lights? Mikoto crossed her arms in front of her chest. I didn't see them in the behemoth forest, and I've never heard of them in the Spalier world. Why did they suddenly appear? Wu Yan didn't understand either. He looked at Yukari, who was smiling. Yukari, what do you think? I think it has something to do with that Marcus guy you mentioned earlier. Yukari spread out her paper fan and covered half of her face. Her eyes flashed with wisdom, and she displayed an unusual charm. That moment of charm made Wu Yan and the other girls who were in the middle of a serious discussion look at her. Their hearts started to get restless. You're saying it has something to do with Marcus? Wu Yan narrowed his eyes. It has a lot to do with him. Yukari didn't jump to conclusions. He was the first one to turn into a monster, and he was the first one to use the black lights. I don't think he has nothing to do with this. You're right. Wu Yan rubbed his forehead as if he had a headache. What should we do now? Nothing needs to be done. Yukari closed her paper fan and placed the tip of her fan on Wu Yan's forehead. Her lips curled into a meaningful smile. There are people who care more about these things than we do. Let them worry about it. Everyone was stunned. What do you mean? Yukari shook her head. She didn't explain and took something out of her pocket. They were 5 different colored gems. She tossed the 5 different colored gems into Wu Yan's hands. This is for you. Wu Yan quickly took it and looked at the gems with the girls. His face was full of confusion. What's the use of these gems? Who knows? Yukari replied with a meaningful smile. When you fight with others, if you can't beat them, you could take out these gems and show them. Maybe you can scare them away. Hearing Violet's ambiguous words, everyone looked at each other, causing Violet's smile to become even more joyful. Then, she quickly changed the topic. All right, since there's still that black light in the forest, you should pay attention to the safety of the girls. After all, the base is in the forest. Hearing this, everyone's expression froze. Wu Yan looked at the 5 gems in his hand and gripped them tightly. He looked up at the ceiling of the tent. Looks like we need to investigate this behemoth forest. Chapter 10:28. Behemoth Forest. In a small corner of the inner circle, There was a team of about 10 people wearing armor and holding weapons. They were fighting against a huge magical beast. To be more precise, this team was beating up the magical beast that they had surrounded in the middle. Currently, the only people who can enter the Behemoth Forest are members of the three empires. If others want to enter the Behemoth Forest, they will be blocked by the camp outside the Behemoth Forest. Unless they want to force their way in, or if they are special like Wu Yan's group, they're considered members of the three empires. This group of about 10 people is the elite team of the Ailu Empire's Behemoth Forest camp. There is only one reason why they are here. They are here to follow the camp's orders and hunt demonic beasts. But it seems like they are in big trouble. Amidst the shouts, the 6 warriors in the 10-man team circulated their warrior chi and performed their battle skills. They rushed to the front of the magical beast that was 2 to 3 times larger than them. Without any hesitation, they smashed their warrior chi and battle skills onto the huge magical beast. Aoo! The demonic beast looks like a bear, but it has the head of a lion. The 3-legged magical beast let out a painful howl amidst a series of muffled sounds. Its incomparably scarlet beastly eyes seemed somewhat crazed under the influence of the pain. The 3 feet that were thicker than the head stomped on the ground, and with a loud bang, the ground cracked. At the same time, a swamp made of magic replaced the cracked ground. Quick, fall back. Seeing this scene, a warrior who seemed to be the leader of this team, who was much older than the others, gave the order. That beast is using magic. Warriors, fall back. Magicians, use this opportunity. Use magic. Obviously, this was not the first time this leader had faced such a situation. His orders were very reasonable. The other members of the team also trusted their leader very much. Therefore, the 6 soldiers who had intended to charge forward immediately retreated without hesitation. Of course, they want to retreat. But the demonic beast that is being beaten up doesn't agree. Oh, an angry howl echoed in the air, followed by a dense magical wave. The magical swamp on the ground seems to have come alive. At the same time, the magical wave and a magical wave reverberated in the air. The swamp suddenly wriggled. It floated up from the ground and spread out like a black fishing net, covering the retreating warriors one by one. Judging from the magical wave flowing through the swamp, if the 6 warriors are caught in the swamp, then the outcome will be death. The situation is very serious. However, there wasn't the slightest bit of panic on the leader's face. Seeing that the swamp net was about to cover the 6 warriors, he waved his hand forcefully. Release. As soon as he said that, a wave of mana behind the leader flickered wildly, turning into scarlet flames that formed an expanding ring of fire. Under the control of the 3 mages with magic staffs, the ring of fire shot into the swamp net like a cannonball, creating sonic booms. Boom! The black swamp net and the scarlet ring of fire collided. With the 2 as the center, a violent shockwave spread out in all directions. When the shockwave subsided, the black swamp net and the scarlet ring of fire disappeared at the same time. Now is the time. The leader let out a loud shout. Holding the knight's sword in his hand, his body turned into a blur as he flashed in front of the huge magic beast. All of the Do Chi in his body was mobilized by him and surged into the armament in his hand. Immediately after, he chopped down with all his might and chopped at the neck of the magic beast. Poochie! A crisp sound rang out from the intersection between the armaments and the demon's neck. Like a piece of paper being torn apart, red liquid sprayed out. The knight's sword wrapped in combat aura slashed through the neck of the demon. In less than a second, the neck that was thicker than a human's waist was instantly severed. The howling of the magical beast came to an abrupt end. It could no longer be heard. Only the head that was dyed red with blood was left. It fell to the ground with a dull thud in front of its owner's beastly eyes that were still wide open in death. When the head of the demonic beast fell to the ground, the body of the demonic beast slowly fell to the ground. A large amount of blood gushed out from the neck and dyed the ground red. It was a clear indication of the victory and defeat of this battle. We won. Haha, that big guy is finally dead. Boss is so mighty. As expected of the boss. That was a level 8 demonic beast. Just like that, the boss cut off its neck. Looks like when we get back to the camp, we will have something to show off. You guys, none of you are serious. Holding the head of the demonic beast, the leader walked back to the group and laughed. If it wasn't for your help, how could I have killed this beast? I am only at the peak of level 7. There is still a long way to go before I reach level 8. Boss, don't be so humble. Strength is one thing. Intelligence is also very important. One of the members of the group said. That timing, TSK, it was really accurate. If it was a bit slower or a bit faster, we would have to fight for a long time. That's right. Everyone in the team immediately agreed, praising the leader to the point that he felt a little smug. But that was indeed the case. If it weren't for the leader's precise timing, it would have been difficult for their team of 10 Tier 7 powerhouses to defeat a Tier 8 magical beast, even if they ganged up on it. Moreover, it was just a Tier 8 magical beast that had just reached Tier 8. If that demonic beast level was a bit higher, it would be a bit uncertain who would live and who would die. Of course, at that time, the leader would not hesitate to give the order to retreat, just as the entire group was immersed in the joy of killing a Class 8 magical beast. A few ferocious eyes suddenly appeared from the bushes at the side, holding the head of the Class 8 magical beast in his hand. The leader of the group suddenly felt that something was wrong. He turned his head abruptly to look behind him. Roar! Almost at the same time, a demonic roar resounded. From the bushes, the owner of the ferocious eyes rushed out and pounced on the leader. Boss! Everyone in the group cried out in alarm, waking up the leader who was unable to react. Realizing that he might have become the hunting target of a certain magical beast, he forced himself to pull himself together. He raised the head of the magical beast in his hand and forcefully threw it towards the incoming magical beast, smashing it to the ground in the nick of time. Only now did everyone see the full appearance of the attacker. But when they saw it, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Pitch-black scales, tentacle-like limbs, and a single eye socket with 7 eyes. That has completely exceeded the image of the attacker in everyone's imagination. What kind of monster is that? Many people reflexively took a step back. Roar! The monster-like demonic beast roared and stomped on the ground with its 4 limbs and attacked again. Be careful! Suppressing the fear in his heart, the leader shouted. But the ferocious appearance of the demonic beast made some of the more timid ones feel fear. One of them even had a fierce look on his face and stomped on the ground. He rushed in front of the monster-like demonic beast and used the weapon in his hand to chop it. Everyone turned pale with fright. Just as they were about to cry out in alarm, they did not expect that the magical beast monster would actually be chopped into 2 halves by the person who had frantically attacked out of fear. It bounced on the ground twice and did not move anymore. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. The person who attacked was also stunned. His face was still pale. Looking at the demonic beast that was chopped in half by him, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. What is this? So it's just a wax spear that looks like silver. Nice to look at, but useless. Hearing his words, everyone in the group sighed in relief and laughed. Only the leader stared at the demonic beast on the ground. He had a bad feeling in his heart. Whoosh! Suddenly, a black light shot out from the demonic beast on the ground and merged into the body of the person who attacked. Following a painful roar, the expressions of the other people in the team were filled with horror, because their familiar companion has turned into a nondescript demonic beast. Roar! In the midst of the roar, a cruel battle has begun. Wu Yin and the others did not know that in the behemoth forest, demonic beasts were not the only ones who were possessed by the black light. Chapter 1029. Behemoth Forest Outpost, Central Tent. Pelosi, Bing Ling, and Bishi were all present in the tent. The higher-ups from the various families were present as well. They were lined up on both sides of the tent. Pelosi, Bing Ling, and Bishi were standing in the middle of the tent. Their expressions changed as they looked at the corpses on the ground. For a moment, the atmosphere in the tent was abnormally heavy. Pelosi, Bing Ling, and Bishi looked at each other. They could see the seriousness in each other's eyes, especially Bing Ling. His expression was gloomy. It was obvious that he was in a bad mood right now. Among everyone present, Pelosi was without a doubt the one with the highest status, strength, and seniority. Even though Bing Ling and Bishi were both in charge of the camp, they were still very young and lacked experience in certain areas. Compared to Pelosi, they were still considered juniors. Therefore, the two of them turned their attention to Pelosi. Seeing that no one made a sound, Pelosi was silent for a while, then glanced at the leader who was standing aside with a painful expression on his face. "Are you sure it was a black light that turned your men into monsters?" Yes, I am sure." The leader looked at the corpses on the ground. His expression became sorrowful again. After killing the demonic beast, the black light ran out from the corpse of the demonic beast. It attached itself to one of my men. He didn't even have a chance to struggle before he turned into a monster. He attacked us, and his strength increased greatly. He is at least at the 8th level. We had no choice but to fight him. His strength increased too much. He killed 3 of our men in an instant. The leader's face paled. He seemed to have recalled the situation back then. In order to prevent any more casualties in the team, we had no choice but to kill them. Even so, 5 people died in the team. Other than me, the other person also lost an arm. I was the only one who was lucky enough to be fine. Under the leader's narration, Yi Zicha nodded. Everyone present seemed to recall the scene at that time, and their gazes towards the leader gradually became sympathetic. His comrade turned into a monster and killed the rest of his men. The leader had no choice but to kill his comrade in order to protect the rest of his men. In the end, they were the only ones who survived. They couldn't imagine what happened. If they were in the same situation, they might go crazy. Pelosi sighed and patted the leader's shoulder. He comforted him before asking, "What about the black light?" "What?" "After the possessed man died, the black light flew away. That streak of black light flew away. It flew away?" Bing Ling and Bishi frowned. "Do you know where it went?" The leader smiled bitterly and shook his head. "We only know that it flew towards the depths of the behemoth forest." The scene fell into silence once again. Pelosi glanced at the corpses on the ground, his gaze lingering on the corpse that was said to have turned into a monster for the longest time. He muttered to himself for a moment before turning back to look at the ice spirit. "Bing Ling, you know the monster and the black light the best. What do you think?" "What do you think?" Hearing this, the ice spirit's face turned ashen for a moment, but it soon turned into a bitter smile. "He knows the monster and the black light the best?" "That's right. After all, Bing Ling's uncle, Marcus, and his brother, Bing Mian, had both turned into such monsters. I don't know much about it. I only know that the black light can possess a person and turn them into a monster. It also has the ability to raise a person's level. Other than that, I don't know anything else." Bing Ling took a deep breath and narrowed his eyes. "However, I think Wu Yin knows more about it than we do." The moment the name Wu Yin was uttered, the tense atmosphere froze. As long as one was in the camp, there was no one who didn't know this person who had once stirred up a storm in the camp. As long as one was in the camp, they would feel a little bit of fear towards this name. That's because he's too hard to control. He's super strong, and he does whatever he wants. He's fearless, and has a group of equally strong girls with strange abilities. Who can guarantee that they won't be afraid of someone like him? At least, no one here is afraid of him. That includes Pelosi, Bing Ling, and Bishi. The ice spirit glanced at the crowd and said, "Uncle Marcus turned into a monster because he wanted to take revenge on him. Otherwise, with his pride, he wouldn't have turned into a monster for the sake of improving his strength. Bing Mian turned into a monster because he chased the black light all the way to the base of the Saito family. In the end, he was the one who destroyed the black light." Bing Ling recalled the time when the black light came out of Bing Mian's body and attached itself to Wu Yin. Not only did Wu Yin not turn into a monster, but he also forced the black light out of his body and crushed it. Bing Ling's face tensed up. He's the one who dealt with the black light the most. I don't think anyone knows the black light better than him. Hearing the ice spirit's words, Everyone present felt that it made sense and nodded thoughtfully. At this moment, you've guessed wrongly this time around. My understanding of the black light is not much different from yours. As the voice sounded, a figure emerged from the void and appeared in front of everyone. This person is none other than Wu Yan. Wu Yan! Gasps of surprise rang out from inside the tent, causing a commotion. Pelosi, Bing Ling, and Bishi were also shocked. Why are you here? Wu Yan chuckled and glanced at the corpses on the ground. The news that one of the teams in the camp suffered heavy casualties, and the leading captain ran to the tent of the person in charge of the central camp with a pale face has long spread throughout the entire camp. Not long after, all of you gathered all of the higher-ups in the camp. As long as one is not stupid, one would be able to guess that something must have happened. I'm just curious, and came to take a look. Wu Yan looked at Pelosi and the others. But I didn't expect to get something out of my curiosity. Pelosi, Bing Ling, and Bishi looked at each other and smiled wryly. Is Wu Yan really the bane of the camp? Every time something happens in the camp, it has something to do with him. The three people in charge sighed helplessly, and they looked at Wu Yan. Then what do you think of it? What else can I think? I told you that I know as much as you do. Wu Yan crossed his arms and looked at Pelosi, Bing Ling, and Bishi. The only thing you could do now is to spread the news. Tell everyone in the camp to be on guard against unknown black lights when they hunt in the giant beast forest. It's best to expand the size of each team to ensure their safety. That's right, Lin Sanjiu said. Pelosi, Bing Ling, and Bishi were silent for a moment before they nodded with a heavy expression on their faces. Then about the black light. His wine-red eyes flashed with an inexplicable coldness as he opened his mouth. I will investigate the black light. Everyone present was stunned. Of course, if you find out anything, let me know. Wu Yan turned around and walked out of the tent without looking back. The atmosphere in the tent reverted back to its previous tense state. When he exited the tent, he saw Hinajiko, Mikoto, Shokuho Misaki, Kotori, Kurumi, and the other girls standing in front of the tent. They were all looking at him. It seems like they heard the conversation inside the tent. What do you plan to do? Kotori asked with a lollipop in her mouth. Wu Yan raised his head and looked at the behemoth forest outside the camp. He clenched his fist. It seems like the situation is more serious than we thought. The black light must still be active in the behemoth forest. We must investigate the behemoth forest. For our sisters. The girls nodded their heads at the same time. Their faces were filled with determination. Chapter 10:30. Behemoth Forest. If one were to look down from above the behemoth forest, one would find the behemoth forest to be very quiet. There were no strange roars of magic beasts coming from the sky. It was as if they were blocked by those towering trees. The sounds of birds, beasts, and insects also couldn't reach here. Only sometimes some flying magic beasts would fly over here and make some strange noises. Aside from that, the sky above the behemoth forest is unexpectedly quiet. However, this tranquility was soon dispelled by two sonic booms. In the distant horizon, two slender silhouettes flew through the sky like shooting stars. They arrived above the behemoth forest at an extremely fast speed. Of course, this extremely fast speed is only relative. For the two silhouettes, this speed is neither fast nor slow. It's not that they don't want to go faster. It's just that if they go too fast, it'll affect the investigation of blacklight. Their plump wings supported their masters as they glided through the air. Under the control of their masters, they flew through the air above the behemoth forest bit by bit. From time to time, one or two pink or pure white feathers could be seen falling from their wings into the behemoth forest below. Their casual clothes have been replaced with light armor that is only used in battle. The style is quite revealing. It's very pleasing to the eye. The two angelic girls were flapping their wings as they hovered above the behemoth forest. Their crimson eyes scanned the behemoth forest below them. One could faintly see two sci-fi-like frames fluctuating. Under the influence of their crimson pupils, the two girls' devastatingly beautiful faces appeared somewhat cold and emotionless, as if they were puppets that only knew how to carry out missions. It was very easy for people to feel a sense of sanctity that made them unapproachable. Unfortunately, this sense of sanctity didn't last long. Coo! It sounded like a cute animal's cry. The strange sound came from a pair of pure white wings flapping in blue and white light armor. She has long hair. It came from a girl with 2 bundles of blonde hair at the end of her hair. If one were to look closely, they would notice the source of the strange sound came from the girl's stomach. For a split second, the girl with short pink hair and pink wings flapping and wearing white light armor, with 2 small ponytails hanging behind her back, paused for a moment. Although she quickly returned to her original state, the girl's gaze was cast towards the owner of the strange sound. You! The frame in her eyes disappeared, and the cold expression disappeared. It was replaced by a teary expression. Astria clutched her stomach and whimpered. I'm so hungry. Are you hungry? Ikaros and her crimson eyes disappeared together. Her indigo eyes couldn't help but look at Astria. Her expression, but her voice hesitation. Do you want to go back and eat? In the end, Ikaros asked. Astria smiled happily. However, the joy disappeared after a while. She shook her head firmly. I really want to go back for dinner, but we can't go back until we finish what Master ordered us to do. Ikaros raised her eyes and asked softly, Are you all right? I'm fine. I'm fine. Astria clenched her fists to express her conviction. Master won't be angry if we go back now, but Astria doesn't want to see Master disappointed. Ripples appeared in Ikaros' eyes. She pondered for a moment before nodding firmly. Me too. I don't want to see Master disappointed. Then Ikaros-senpai, let's continue. Okay. Ikaros and Astria entered their combat mode and scanned the behemoth forest. Wu Yin wanted to investigate the black light in the behemoth forest, but Shokuho Misaki and Kotori stopped him. The reason why they were investigating the black light was because the Misaka sisters' base was in the giant beast forest. The black light's existence was very likely to endanger the sisters, so they had to investigate it thoroughly. Even if they couldn't investigate it thoroughly, they had to at least find out the ins and outs of the black light or expel it to ensure the sisters' safety. However, it was also because of this that the defenses of the base had to be raised. Therefore, after talking to Pelosi, Bing Ling, and Bishi yesterday, they all agreed that it was time to set up the defensive barrier around the base in advance. This way, they can more or less guarantee the safety of the sisters who are busy working in the incomplete base. This way, Wu Yin won't be able to participate in the investigation. After all, Wu Yin and Yukari are the only ones who know how to use barrier techniques. Wu Yin had no choice but to give up on the idea of investigating the black light himself. Ikaros and Astria are the strongest in the group after Yukari and himself to investigate the behemoth forest. Other than Wu Yin and Yukari, Flandre-chan is the strongest in the group. She has the highest level after Yukari. She also has the ability to destroy eyes. Even if Wu Yin goes up against Flandre-chan, he won't be able to defeat her without Ruby Mode. It's the same even if he summons all of his familiars. However, Flandre-chan is strong, but her mind is still the same as a child's. It's hard to guarantee that she won't lose her sense of direction if she's sent on an investigation mission. Other than Wu Yin, Yukari, and Flandre-chan, Ikaros and Astria are the strongest in the group. Ikaros and Astria are omnipotent angels. They aren't as good at investigating as combat, but they aren't weak either. The 2 angelic girls have wide-area radars that can scan everything within a certain range. They're the best candidates for the investigation. Of course, Astria's IQ is her weakness. It's inevitable for her to get into some accidents when she's on a mission. However, with Ikaros accompanying her, she should be fine. With the wide-area radars, Ikaros and Astria don't need to explore the entire behemoth forest. They only need to move their positions so that the behemoth forest is within the radar's range. With their speed, it didn't take long for them to scan a small portion of the forest. Flying above the behemoth forest, the 2 angelic girls kept flapping their wings and changing their positions. They scanned the entire behemoth forest with their wide-area radars. This saved them a lot of trouble by avoiding the demonic beasts in the behemoth forest. As more and more areas were scanned, Ikaros and Astria started to notice some strange-looking demonic beasts. Pitch-black scales, tentacle-like limbs, and a single eye socket with 7 eyes. This appearance might be unfamiliar to others, but to the 2 girls who had seen Marcus turn into a monster, it wasn't familiar, but it was impossible for them to be mistaken. These monster-like demonic beasts must be possessed by the black light. No, it's not just demonic beasts. Ikaros and Astrea also noticed some humans being possessed by the black light and turned into monsters. Ikaros senpai. Astrea turned around and looked at Ikaros. What should we do? Ikaros raised her head. Her hair swelled up and a halo floated above her head. A cold glint flashed in her crimson eyes. Target eliminated. Ikaros didn't give Astrea a chance to react. She unfurled her wings of light, and countless pink-colored missiles shot out. They drew an arc in the air and landed accurately on the monsters as if they had eyes of their own. Bang, 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 bang. A series of explosions echoed in the behemoth forest. When the explosions stopped, Ikaros and Astrea's wide-area radars showed only distorted black lights flying into the distance. The black lights were all flying in the same direction. Ikaros senpai. Ikaros nodded. She and Astrea flew towards the direction of the black lights. Chapter 10:31. At the same time, a large amount of black lights were flying around the inner area of the behemoth forest like they were on a rampage. The dense foliage did not hinder them in the slightest. They streaked across the sky in arcs of light, leaving a trail of black light behind them. They seemed to have a purpose as they flew in a certain direction. It was as if they had eyes. Even if there were trees in their path, they would dodge them and continue flying forward. For a moment, the entire behemoth forest was enveloped by a strange phenomenon. A large amount of black lights flew through the forest like bees returning to their hive. Coupled with the continuous sound of breaking air, if the behemoth forest was the sky and the black lights were silver, it would look like a meteor shower at night. It's a beautiful sight, if you ignore their nature. There shouldn't be this many black lights. Although these black lights had no consciousness, they had some kind of instinct, just as Z had deduced. Not only could they sense danger, but they could also attach themselves to living creatures and bring about changes to them. This was also a hidden instinct of the black lights. The black lights reside in living creatures. That's why most of the black lights here are attached to the bodies of demonic beasts in the behemoth forest. A small number of them are attached to humans. After mutating, the black lights returned to normal. But now, the targets of the black lights were reduced to ashes by Ikaros Artemis, permanent rear-homing missile. So, the black lights had no choice but to leave their hosts and follow their instincts. They have to continue searching for the next host. But now, for some reason, these black lights had given up on their instinct to search for a host and were all rushing in the same direction. Clearly, there was something fishy. Ikaros and Astrea noticed this and didn't choose to destroy the black lights. Instead, they let them move on their own and lead the way. As for why there are so many black lights, that's simple. Because along the way, as long as Ikaros came across any living being possessed by the black light, it would fire Artemis, permanent tail-homing missile, to free those poor bastards from their suffering. Over time, that's why there are so many black lights. It's a good thing Wu Yin and the others didn't see this, or they would be shocked. They didn't expect there to be so many black lights in the behemoth forest. However, wasn't it precisely because it was unexpected that they chose to investigate? They chased after the black lights. Ikaros and Astrea tried their best to maintain a safe distance to avoid being possessed by the black light. Their radar was fully activated, so they didn't have to worry about losing their target. They focused on flying. Ikaros was the only one who kept releasing cherry-colored missiles. She wanted to destroy the possessed creatures. After an unknown amount of time, the 2 angelic girls left a trail of feathers in their wake. They slowly approached the edge of the behemoth forest. As they got closer to the behemoth forest, Ikaros and Astrea's eyes started fluctuating more and more. Both of them are getting serious. That was because in their wide-area radar, there were already grayed 9 magical beasts that had fallen into their scanning range. If the black light chose to possess their bodies, then these demonic beasts would immediately become the most terrifying enemies. Think about it. They are already tier 9 demonic beasts. If the black lights enhance them, how much stronger would they become? One thing is for sure, Ikaros and Astrea won't benefit from this. While the two girls were analyzing the situation, the black lights flashed past the tier 9 demonic beasts and flew in a certain direction. The two girls sighed in relief, but they were also confused. Where do the black lights want to go? Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The sound of the giant beast's forest breaking through the air continued. The speed of the black lights seemed to have increased. Many magical beasts in the giant beast forest saw the black lights dancing in the sky. They were so scared that they started to roar. Some of them even ran away. That kind of scene could be imagined, but that still wasn't enough reason for Ikaros and Astrea to stop. Until a certain moment, Ikaros senpai. Astrea flapped her wings in boredom and turned on her radar out of reflex. She raised her head and looked in front of her. Astrea yelped in surprise and stopped in midair, dragging Ikaros along with her. What's wrong? Ikaros maintained her Queen of the Sky mode. She looked at Astrea with a cold expression. Ikaros was even more emotionless than her normal self. Astrea didn't mind at all. She pointed in front of her. Look over there. There. Ikaros followed Astrea's instructions and looked at the direction Astrea was pointing at. The next moment, her crimson eyes shrunk. There's a tall cliff in the behemoth forest. It's a cliff shrouded in thick black fog. The black fog tumbled like a storm, like the dark clouds before a storm. One could faintly hear the whistling of the wind. Streaks of black light danced back and forth in the black fog. Looking at the number, it was like water droplets in the sea. It was impossible to count them with just a few words. The black lights that led the way for Ikaros and Astrea started circling around each other. They flew into the black mist and became one of the many black lights. They were instantly swallowed up by the other black lights. It was impossible to tell which ones were originally here and which ones were added later. This situation is still going on. Even Ikaros and Astrea didn't know how to react to the situation. It really made one's hair stand on end. The scene in front of him was like a beehive, and the black light was the bees. They were scrambling to get into the beehive, or rolling outside the high cliff with the black fog, as if something extremely terrifying was brewing. If there was a person with trypophobia here, he or she would definitely be scared to death by the scene in front of him. There are too many black lights. They're too dense. If there are more black lights in the behemoth forest, the entire behemoth forest will be turned into a land of monsters. Even the camp outside the behemoth forest might be affected. Ikaros didn't feel anything when she thought about monsters like Marcus taking over the behemoth forest and swarming out of the behemoth forest. Astrea, on the other hand, was terrified. Hey, Ikaros senpai. Astrea shifted her gaze away from Gallia and looked at Ikaros. She asked anxiously, "What is that?" "What?" "I don't know." Ikaros shook her head. "There's a high possibility that this is the center of the light source." "You mean?" Astrea tilted her head. She hesitated for a moment and said in an uncertain tone, "Is this the source of the black light?" Based on the current situation, Ikaros' eyes were moving up and down as she observed the cliff. To be more precise, she was analyzing the situation inside the cliff. There's a high possibility. Then, Astrea glanced at the cliff. "Should we inform Master?" Ikaros also hesitated for a moment before looking at the high cliff. "Before that, let's confirm it." After that, Ikaros flapped her wings and flew towards the cliff. "Wait, Ikaros senpai." Astrea wanted to call out to Ikaros, but Ikaros is already close to the cliff. Astrea suppressed the restlessness in her heart, and as if she was praying to Wu Yin, she mumbled "Master" twice before flying over to Wu Yin. With the passage of time, the black lights that are flying towards them are getting thinner and thinner. Looks like they're all about to enter the cliff. Ikaros also arrived at the edge of the cliff. Looking at the black fog and black lights, the square frame in her crimson eyes suddenly expanded. This proves that her master is trying her best to analyze everything in front of her, trying to see through the cliff's inner workings. It was also at this moment that a phenomenon occurred. The black fog suddenly erupted and spread out, wrapping around Ikaro's figure in an instant. Ikaro's senpai, Astria's sorrowful wail reverberated throughout the arena. Chapter 1032. Ikaro's senpai. Astria panicked when she saw Ikaros being swallowed by the black mist. She flapped her wings and wanted to dash out, but the black mist that swallowed Ikaros suddenly glowed brightly. Astria stopped in her tracks and got a clear view of the situation inside the black mist. Within the steam-like black fog, threads of sparkling light flickered. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that the source of the threads of light was a circular crystal barrier. That's Ikaros' Aegis, absolute defense circle. At the critical moment, Ikaros activated her Aegis, absolute defense circle. As if propping up heaven and earth, Ikaros spread her arms wide. Aegis, absolute defense circle, formed a circular barrier around her beautiful figure, protecting her from the invasion of the black mist. But even though the surrounding black mist didn't pose any threat to Ikaros, the densely packed black lights seemed to have met with a formidable foe. Inside the black mist, the black lights seemed to have transformed into iron hammers. As they twisted and contorted, they collided with the Aegis, absolute defense circle, like beams of light. Boom, 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 boom. Instantly, a series of muffled sounds rang out from the circular barrier of the Aegis, like the beating of a drum. There was no pattern in the black mist. The sound reverberated through the clouds. One could tell from the deafening muffled sounds. Just how strong is the black light? Ikaros, who had entered her Queen of the Sky mode, had her eyes flashing crazily. Her cold and pretty face showed signs of pain. She clenched her teeth, and her hands that were holding up the Aegis, absolute defense circle, were trembling slightly. Obviously, the impact of the large amount of black light had exceeded the burden of her defense. Ikaros senpai. She saw Ikaros' current situation clearly. Astria didn't hesitate. CHRYR, Super Photon Blade, and Aegis equals L, Area of Defense, appeared in her hands at the same time. In less than a second, Astria flapped her wings and her body turned into a blur as she dashed forward. Along with a clear cry, the radiant blade of the CHRY saw super vibrating photon knife suddenly expanded by several dozen times. Astria swung the gigantic lightsaber towards the black mist surrounding Ikaros, breaking through the heavy atmospheric pressure. She went all out from the start. Too bad the opponent is a traceable foe. Even if the opponent's level was higher than Astria's, Astria might not necessarily lose. However, her opponent this time was a formless black mist. CHRY saw Super Photon Blade slashed at the black mist in front of her. He attempted to peel off the black fog that trapped Ikaros. However, he didn't succeed. That sword strike, which was powerful enough to slice through a huge mountain peak, seemed to have slashed through the air. It only caused a small ripple in the black fog. Just like before, Ikaros was trapped inside the black mist. What? Astria looked at her CHRY saw Super Photon Blade, and then at the black mist in front of her. Her cold red eyes were filled with shock. It didn't work at all. While Astria was still in shock, the black mist seemed to be stimulated by something. It started tumbling even more violently. The black light inside the mist started ramming into Ikaros' Aegis barrier at a much faster rate. Thump, 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 thump. Oomph. Ikaros couldn't help but groan under the impact of the black light. The pain on her face deepened a bit, and her hands trembled even more. Even the crystal light on the Aegis barrier dimmed a bit. If this continued, the Aegis would shatter sooner or later. Once the Aegis is broken, even if Ikaros doesn't get possessed by the black lights, she'd still suffer unimaginable damage from the barrage of black lights. What do I do? What do I do? Astria panicked. She didn't know what to do in this situation due to her lack of computational skills. All right. Astria's eyes lit up as she shouted at Ikaros. Ikaros-senpai, activate Pandora's evolution. With Ikaros' strength, she shouldn't have fallen to such a state. The only thing to blame was the sudden attack of the black fog, which led to her current predicament. But as long as Ikaros activates Pandora's evolution, Aegis will evolve as well. At that time, Ikaros won't need to maintain Aegis herself anymore. She can just charge out directly. At least that's what Astria thought. However, Astria seemed to have forgotten that the reason Ikaros was trapped by the black mist was because of the Aegis. Without her support, the Aegis would shatter under the impact of the black mist. If she could free her hands, Ikaros would have escaped long ago. Why would she need to undergo Pandora's evolution? It takes time to activate Pandora's evolution. During this time, Ikaros will have to give up on Aegis. But if she does, Aegis will shatter as well. Under such circumstances, Ikaros won't have the time to activate Pandora's evolution. Ikaros could only shake her head when she heard Astria's reminder. Astria almost burst into tears when she heard that. She watched as the light on Aegis dimmed. It's only a matter of time before it shatters. Astria couldn't hold back her tears anymore. What should I do? Master, Master. Astria has never hated herself for being too weak. She didn't even hate herself when she almost died against the Beast King. Astria grit her teeth and grit her teeth. She grabbed her lightsaber and shield and charged into the black mist to save Ikaros. At this moment, within the Aegis, Ikaros lifted her head and spoke. Evolve. Astria. Astria froze. She was stunned. Evolve? Ikaros nodded with difficulty. She forced herself to maintain Aegis while channeling the rest of her energy into her mouth. Your Pandora system has also shown signs of awakening. If it evolves, there will definitely be a way, yes. Yes. Astria clutched at her chest as if she was grasping at straws. But what should I do? Astria's Pandora system was already showing signs of awakening when she reached Tier 9. Now, all she needs to do is activate Pandora, and Astria will be able to evolve. Master once said you can evolve because of your own reasons. Ikaros' voice was so soft that it was almost drowned out by the clashing of the black mist. She raised her voice as much as she could and looked at Astria. The evolution condition of the Pandora system requires strong emotional fluctuations. Although your computing ability is not good, your emotional ability is very strong. You don't need too much emotional fluctuations to promote evolution. That's why you can do it. As long as you want to evolve, you can. As long as I want to. Astria's eyes lit up as if a light bulb went off in her head. She clutched her heart tightly as realization dawned on her. She finally understood. She finally understood why she couldn't undergo Pandora evolution. It was because she didn't want to evolve at all. What Ikaros said was absolutely correct. As long as Astria wants to evolve, Astria will evolve. Chapter 1033. To be honest, Astria doesn't like fighting at all. She was a very simple girl. What she liked the most was to be able to eat her fill every day, have fun, and have companions by her side so that she would not be lonely. She was satisfied as long as she could, just like now. Not only did she have companions by her side, but she also got to eat until she was full. Wu Yan also doted on her and spoiled her. This kind of life is no different from heaven for Astria. Compared to now, before she was summoned, Astria's life in Synapse wasn't happy at all. That's why Astria is very satisfied with her time with Wu Yan. Astria doesn't like fighting, she doesn't like bringing harm to others, and she doesn't like the feeling of hurting others. Plus, Astria was able to live the life she wanted. She didn't like fighting anymore. Of course, there are times when she really wants to fight. For example, when Wu Yan is in danger, or when her companions need her help. That's the only time Astria will fight. But knowing how to fight doesn't mean she wants to. If possible, Astria hopes that the time when she has to fight will never come. If that's the case, she can continue to eat good food and play with Wu Yan and the others. Sometimes, she can even play with Flander-chan Yoshino, and the others. She can live a fulfilling life. Unfortunately, this kind of thinking is naive. No matter what, Astrea is an all-purpose angel used for fighting. She was born to fight. It's too hard for Astrea not to fight. It's too hard. In the past, Astrea didn't have any hope that she would be able to live a life where she didn't need to fight. But Wu Yan's existence reignited her hope. It was because Astrea knew her master. She doesn't like fighting. She wants to be strong. She wants to be strong enough to protect herself and her companions. She wants to survive in this world. She still remembered that her master had once said something like this to her: "When I stand at the top of the world, I will protect everyone. When that time comes, I want to find a beautiful and peaceful place to live with everyone. I want to live a happy and peaceful life with everyone." Ever since then, Astrea made up her mind. Before his master stood at the peak, he would use the sword in his hand to eliminate all the obstacles in his path. That's why she can't run away from battle. Until the day when that blissful, joyous, and peaceful life arrived. I will never run away from battle. Astrea raised her head abruptly. Her crimson eyes flashed with blood-red fighting spirit along with the sci-fi frame. At the same time, the pure and innocent girl's determined roar echoed through the sky. In order to live a happy, and peaceful life, as the shouts rang out, the world suddenly fell silent. A beam of light shot out from Astrea's body. It turned into a shockwave that blasted towards the sky, towards the ground, and towards the black mist that enveloped Ikaros. Boom! Like a white wind clashing with a black wind, the shockwave and the black mist collided. The space around them started to tremble. At the same time, the churning black fog was also stirred up. The next moment, Astrea turned into a streak of light. Looking at the silhouette in the aurora, Ikaros' cold eyes couldn't help but flash with a gratified light. Wasn't that joy at the possibility of getting out of this predicament? Instead, he was happy that he could see his friend's progress. The wind and waves around the aurora began to swirl around the figure of light like a whirlwind. It was like a whirlpool carrying a tornado-like whistling sound. It wandered wildly in the space, and the trend was getting more and more intense. Not long after, the storm-like whirlpool condensed around the figure in the aurora as if it was being absorbed. Together with the aurora that wrapped around the figure, it gradually entered the figure's body until it was completely absorbed into the slender figure. The ray of light disappeared. The wind stopped blowing. The only thing left in the world was a ray of light floating in the air. Specks of golden light floated around the ray of light. They looked like powder scattered by butterflies. Astrea had her eyes closed. The light armor on her body was gone. It was replaced by a battle suit. Her upper body only covered her ample bosom while her abdomen was exposed. Her lower body looked like a pair of long pants, but the thighs were missing. Instead, it looked like a combination of shorts and socks. Her lower body was covered by armor. For pieces of light armor that looked like shoulder pads dangled from her abdomen. It looked like a battle skirt. She also had a pair of shoulder pads that looked like wings. She also had hair accessories that looked like a helmet on both sides of her head. The pure white wings seemed to have grown in size. They spread out from Astrea's back and split into 3 pairs from middle. There was only 1 pair of wings, but they looked like 3 pairs of wings. The surface of the wings shimmered like sharp blades. Astrea's 2 bundles of golden hair fluttered slightly as she caressed them. She looked like a goddess of war. Finally, Ikaros ignored the black light. The only thing in her eyes was the goddess of war, Astrea. Astrea version 2. Perhaps Ikaros mumbling awakened the new Astrea. Astrea slowly opened her eyes. She looked at Ikaros, who was struggling in the black mist. Her expression turned serious, and she raised her hands. Astrea held a sword and shield in her hands, as usual. However, the shape of the sword and shield changed completely. It looked like a sword of light with wings. It was a shield that could cover half of her body. It was wide at the top and sharp at the bottom. CHRY Sori, Super Vibrating Photon Blade 2, and Aegis, AoE Defensive Shield 2. After Astrea entered Pandora mode, her equipment also evolved. Astrea raised her lightsaber. The blade of the lightsaber radiated waves of sharpness. A barrier of light appeared in front of Astrea. See Charwai Sori, Super Vibrating Photon Blade 2. Fire. The winged lightsaber sliced through the void in front of Astrea, drawing an arc of light in the air. Then, the lightsabers emitted a buzzing sound as they shot out from the arc of light. The lightsabers landed on the black mist surrounding Ikaros with sonic booms. Bam, 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 bam. Like sword-shaped cannonballs, a large number of lightsabers rained down on the black fog. Like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, the black fog surrounding Ikaros was emptied out by the bombardment of the lightsabers. The black fog surrounding Ikaros was emptied out by the bombardment of the lightsabers. Now is the time. Astrea flapped her wings. Specks of light swirled around her wings, and they started growing. Not long after, Astrea's pure white wings turned into a pair of light wings with a length of more than 10 meters. Photon swings, multifaceted photon force wings. Safety restriction lifted. As soon as he finished speaking, the huge wings of light flashed. Astrea turned into a ray of light. Whoosh! Accompanied by an ear-piercing explosion, a stream of light fell from the sky like a meteorite, rubbing against the atmosphere and stirring up a burst of sparks. The entire stream of light was dyed fiery red. With an extremely clear fiery tail, it cut through the sky and also cut through the ferocious rolling black fog. When the ray of light dissipated, Astrea revealed herself. Ikaros was already in Astrea's arms. Chapter 1034. Photon Swings. This is Astrea's new ability after entering Pandora mode. Astrea originally had the best mobility and acceleration wings among angeloids. After the evolution of Pandora, her wings were enhanced to the limit. The ability she gained was called Photon Swings, multifaceted photon force wings. Photon Swings, multifaceted photon force wings. Once activated, Astrea's wings will transform into a pair of light wings with a length of more than 10 meters. It will provide an unimaginable boost to its owner. It can increase Astrea's movement speed to the speed of light, the true speed of light. That's why Astrea turned into a ray of light. That's why she was able to break through the black fog with extreme speed and rescue Ikaros from within. Even after Astrea rescued Ikaros, the black mist was still rumbling. The black light continued to attack Ikaros' original position. Some of them even canceled each other out. Speed. How terrifying. Ikaros-senpai. Astrea supported Ikaros in midair. She asked with concern, "Are you all right?" Ikaros was panting slightly. Looks like she did expend a lot of energy, but she has a self-healing system. Not only can it heal her wounds, it can also restore her stamina. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to hold on for so long under the onslaught of those black lights. It's not that the black light is too strong. It's just that there are too many of them. Ants can bite an elephant to death. This is probably what they mean by a situation like this. She took another deep breath. She calmed herself down. Ikaros gently pushed Astrea's hand away. She looked at Astrea, who was in Pandora mode. Her gaze wavered. What if it worked? Ahaha. Even though her appearance has changed, her strength has increased. However, Astrea's personality didn't change at all. She heard Ikaros' words. She scratched her head embarrassedly and smiled sheepishly. After all, reality has proven itself. The reason why her Pandora system hadn't been truly activated was because she didn't want to evolve. How could the girls who were racking their brains to help her evolve endure this? She knew the girls wouldn't blame her, but she still felt embarrassed. Ikaros felt the same way. Astrea quickly changed the topic. Then, Ikaros-senpai, what should we do now? Ikaros returned to her Queen of the Sky mode, her cold eyes sweeping across the black fog and black gas below. The analysis of the unknown substance is still incomplete. The most important thing to do now is to continue. Ikaros lowered her head. However, Master's order must be our priority. Astrea nodded in agreement. Before Ikaros and Astrea came out, Wu Yin reminded them that they should only investigate the black light and that they shouldn't go too deep into danger. If they find anything strange, they are to report back to him. Wu Yin knows that with Ikaros and Astrea's strength, he doesn't need to worry too much. However, it's better to be safe than sorry. There are no absolutes in this world. Accidents happen every year. Who can guarantee that nothing bad will happen? Wu Yin, more or less, is still worried. That's why he reminded them. Reality proved that Wu Yin's worries weren't unfounded. Ikaros was caught in an accident, and it was a very dangerous accident. If Astrea didn't activate Pandora in time, Ikaros would have been gravely injured even if she didn't die from the barrage of black lights. Astrea was furious to the point where she wanted to destroy the black mist and black light. However, she didn't object to Ikaros' decision. She decided to report this to Wu Yin when she got back. It's a must to report this to Wu Yin. Of course, there's no need for that now. There's no need to go back. I saw everything. Ikaros and Astrea seemed to have sensed something as well. Their eyes lit up with joy as they turned around to look behind them. Wu Yin was floating in the air. He looked at them with a gentle yet helpless smile. His eyes were filled with annoyance. If you only think of me as your priority now, why didn't you tell me earlier? That way, we wouldn't have encountered any danger, right? Master, Ikaros lowered her head apologetically like a child who did something wrong. Astrea looked at Wu Yin in shock. Master, why are you here? Why am I here? Wu Yin knocked on Ikaros and Astrea's heads with his knuckles. What other reason could there be other than for you two? The two girls clutched their heads in pain. Astrea puffed up her cheeks in anger. However, she quickly regained her composure. For us? Nodding, Wu Yin looked at the direction of the high cliff. He narrowed his eyes as he looked at the black mist and the black light that came from the high cliff. I've already set up a telepathic spell on your bodies. If you're in danger, I'll be able to sense it immediately. So when I sensed that something happened to Ikaros, I immediately used teleportation to rush over. Wu Yin turned to look at Astrea, who looked like a Valkyrie with a grin on his face. However, I didn't expect that you would give me such a pleasant surprise when I rushed over. Pleasant surprise? A question mark appeared on Astrea's head. What pleasant surprise? Huh? Wu Yan's mouth twitched. Even if it's the Pandora system that can make angels evolve, it seems like it can't also evolve your brain, Master. Ikaros flapped her wings and flew to Wu Yan's side. As usual, she stayed less than 1 meter behind him as she whispered, "What should we do now?" Hearing Ikaros' words, Wu Yan glanced at Gaoya, who was enveloped in black energy and black light. I don't know what's going on, but based on the situation, the source of the black light might be here. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and his expression gradually turned cold. If that's the case, let's destroy this place. Destroy it. Astrea was stunned. Ikaros also hesitated. Shouldn't we investigate this? If we want to investigate the black light, Yukari is already in the process. She has samples as well. It is important to investigate the origin of the black light. But don't forget, the purpose of this investigation is to prevent the sisters in the behemoth forest from being harmed by the black light. Compared to this, there's no need to investigate the origin of the black light. This place might be the source of the black light. If we destroy it, we will have achieved our goal. Wu Yin shrugged after looking at Ikaros and Astrea. Besides, even if we want to investigate, we don't know where to start. Are we supposed to just go in? The black light can possess people. Wu Yin took a step forward and looked down at the billowing black mist and dancing black light. He sighed. We have no choice but to investigate this. There's no way we can start from there. We might as well destroy this place first. Even if this place isn't the source of the black light, if we can eliminate a large amount of the black light, the threat to the sisters will be greatly reduced. Ikaros and Astrea looked at each other and nodded. Master, Ikaros flew in front of Wu Yin. She left Wu Yin with her back facing him. You want to help? Ikaros. Wu Yin hesitated, but he didn't refuse. Fine, I'll let you do it. But the black light is evil. Don't hold back. Yes, Master, I'll help too. Astrea flew over and lined up beside Ikaros with a serious look on her face. I feel like I can activate the Pandora system again. Let me help. Chapter 1035. Activate Pandora again. Wu Yin was shocked. Even Ikaros looked at Astrea in surprise after hearing her words. Wu Yin, Ikaros, and Astrea didn't know much about Pandora. All they knew was that the Pandora system was a system that Daedalus had installed on the 3 first-generation angels. It had the ability to allow the angels to evolve on their own. However, they didn't know how it would evolve, what level it would reach, what kind of strength it would have, what kind of equipment it would evolve into, and what kind of abilities it would derive. Ikaros now has Pandora mode, and Astrea also received Pandora evolution. However, they never expected Pandora to allow an angel to evolve twice in a row, including Astrea. But now, Astrea said she felt like she could activate Pandora again. Even though Astrea said it was just a feeling, Wu Yin and Ikaros could hear the seriousness in her voice. Does Pandora really have the ability to allow an angeloid to evolve multiple times? Wu Yin was silent for a moment before he smiled. Interesting. Wu Yin looked at Astrea and waved his hand. It was as if he was cheering for Astrea. Give it a try. Astrea. At this moment, Astrea smiled. Her smile was filled with joy and confidence. Yes, Master. As soon as she said that, buzz, a dazzling aurora illuminated the world. Energy waves surged in all directions. It turned into the brightest and most dazzling light in the world. It was like an exploding nuclear bomb, causing shock waves to spread everywhere. It was just a flash of light. The atmosphere was unbelievably stirred. Even the space seemed to be emitting strange sounds, as if it was announcing something. It was like a dream, causing people to be unconsciously intoxicated by the bright light, unable to extricate themselves. It was as if there was only light left between heaven and earth. The source of the light. They were 2 angelic girls with pink and pure white wings, respectively. As for Wu Yin, who was closest to the angelic girls, he squinted his eyes due to the blinding light. He even put his hands in front of his face to block the light. However, he didn't pull away from the 2 angelic girls. They were the most dazzling light in the world right now. That's why he had to see it with his own eyes. He had to be the closest to them. If possible, he wanted to hug and caress them. It seemed like they sensed Wu Yan's thoughts. Ikaros and Astrea turned around to look at Wu Yan. At this moment, whether it was Ikaros who didn't know how to express her feelings or Astrea, who was simple-minded and naive, both of them smiled from the bottom of their hearts. Those 2 smiles were very gentle. It was so gentle that Wu Yin, who was immersed in it, almost melted. Master, Ikaros clasped her hands in front of her chest, as if she was trying to suppress the overflowing love in her heart. She followed the guidance of her heart and murmured her true feelings. I love you. In response to Ikaros' overwhelming love, a pillar of light shot out from her body and into the sky. Astrea also had a hand in front of her chest. However, she wasn't suppressing her love for him. She was making up her mind to break up with him. She stared at Wu Yin and lowered her head to look at the shield in her hand. Astrea doesn't like fighting. She really doesn't like fighting. Although she wouldn't run away from battle and didn't hate it, she didn't like it. Otherwise, she wouldn't have suppressed the Pandora system that should have been activated and stopped herself from evolving. She was a very emotional person, after all. The activation condition of Pandora system is strong emotional fluctuations. Astrea has strong emotional fluctuations, so she should have evolved a long time ago. However, her emotional fluctuations are so strong that even Pandora system is being suppressed. Maybe it's because Astrea doesn't like fighting, or maybe it's because the Pandora system is following the host's emotions and didn't activate automatically. Either way, it's enough to prove Astrea's desire for a peaceful life. That's why Astrea is so determined. I don't like fighting. I don't like to bring harm to others. I don't like the feeling of hurting each other. Astria looked at the shield in her hand and spoke in a mosquito voice. I like to eat good food. I like to play with my friends. I also like Master who treats me the best. That's why I don't like to fight. I don't want to fight. However, I'm an all-purpose angel for local battles. I exist for the sake of battle. Yet I don't like to fight. Isn't it strange? Fortunately, Master didn't force me to fight. He made me delicious food and brought me the best companions. He gave me the life I love the most. However, even if this is the case, the time to fight will still come, but for Master and my friends, I don't like to fight, but I don't hate it either. I'm satisfied with my current life. I'm very satisfied. But Master has a better dream. He wants to find a beautiful and peaceful place to live with everyone. He wants to live a happy and peaceful life. If there is such a life, it must be beautiful, right? I really want to live that kind of life. Astria tightened her grip on the shield as she spoke. Her knuckles were cracking. Astria, on the other hand, kept smiling, until a certain moment. The smile on her face disappeared and was replaced by a firm expression. That's why I can't run away from battle. I don't want to run away from battle. Only by fighting can I protect Master until he stands at the peak. For the sake of Master and that beautiful life, I have made up my mind. Before Master stands at the peak, use the sword in your hand to remove all the obstacles in Master's path. Astria swung her hand to the side and tossed her shield away without hesitation. On the other hand, she grabbed her lightsaber with all her might. That's right. I will use my sword to remove all obstacles in Master's way. I just need a sword. I don't need a shield. I made up my mind a long time ago, didn't I? In response to Astria's firm conviction, a pillar of light shot out from her body and into the sky. The two pillars of light were like indomitable pillars that supported the heavens. They carried an extremely dense and resplendent light that illuminated every corner of the space, including the rolling black fog and black light. After an unknown amount of time, the pillars of light disappeared. Ikaros and Astria appeared from within the pillar of light. They also appeared in their new forms. Pink light spots were swimming around her body, like the holy light of an angel, moving back and forth. She was wearing a feather coat that started from her chest and extended downwards, like two wings. Coupled with the shorts that only reached her thighs, she was obviously very revealing, but it gave people a feeling of holiness. Two pairs of pink wings, an inverted halo on her head, and two pairs of combined armor that looked like shoulder guards and leg guards separated from her body and floated in the air. Light dots floated around her body, but they were golden in color. They looked like a pure gold rainbow. She also wore a blue princess gown that fluttered in the air. Her abdomen was bare, and she wore white armor on both sides. She wore a black outfit that looked like a pair of long gloves from her neck to her arms. Her shoulders were exposed to the air. 3 pairs of pure white wings, 2 bundles of long golden hair that reached her ankles were fixed to the right side of her head by a headdress. The ends of her hair fluttered in the wind along with the hem of her dress. Ikaros and Astria entered Pandora mode at the same time. Chapter 1036. Looking at Ikaros and Astria, who entered Pandora mode with pink wings and white wings respectively, Wu Yin fell into a daze. Even when the world returned to normal and only the rumbling of the black mist could be heard, he still hasn't recovered from his daze. There's no other reason. He just found them too beautiful, too beautiful. Wu Yin already saw Ikaros in Pandora mode once, but after such a long time, he still couldn't help but be captivated by her beauty. Her purity, elegance, beauty, and purity were constantly captivating his heart. He couldn't help but lose himself. If Ikaros Pandora mode made Wu Yin lose himself, then Astria's second evolution of Pandora mode really shook Wu Yan's heart. All this while Astria's image in Wu Yan's mind is a naive, innocent, playful, and carefree little girl. Even though she's an excellent fighter, her personality still made everyone in the group treat her like a little sister. They subconsciously wanted to take care of her to the best of their ability. But now Astria, her blue dress swayed slightly. Her blonde hair was tied into 2 ponytails on the right side of her head, due to a hair accessory. It looked like a split ponytail. It's a small change, but it covered up Astria's naive and romantic personality. She became shrewd and valiant. Astria's light armor was gone. The only thing left on her body were the 2 pieces of armor on her waist. Other than that, she was wearing a light gown that looked like the gown a queen would wear during a ball. The color was as dark as the sea, but it felt like it was the color of the sea. It's no doubt the most suitable color for Astria. Astria is as noble, beautiful, and pure as Ikaros. She's different from Ikaros' holiness. Astria is an intelligent and capable goddess. Different vibes, but equally beautiful. The 2 angelic girls are the only ones left in this world. They had already become the only thing in this world. Even the black fog that covered the sky and the sun was unable to cover their radiance. At least, that's what Wu Yin thought. Of course, if he saw this scene, if he thought the 2 angelic girls were only beautiful, he would be sorely mistaken. Wu Yin, who was immersed in the beauty of the 2 girls, didn't notice Astria was holding a great sword in her hand. In terms of size, it was comparable to 10 incenses the last sword, a giant sword of light that was more than 10 meters long. She's holding the great sword by its hilt. Astria could feel the purplish golden light flowing on the blade of the sword. His current strength had already far exceeded his normal state. No, compared to the first time he activated Pandora, he was several times stronger than when he hadn't abandoned his shield. This was a transcendental power that was completely given up on the absolute defense in exchange for. She tightened her grip. She couldn't even hold 1/10 of the sword hilt with both hands. Astria's confidence increased when she felt her strength. She felt that even if she were to cut open the heavens and the earth, she would still be able to do it. This is, without a doubt, an illusion. However, even though splitting the sky and the earth was a bit exaggerated, if he were to split that high cliff, Astria slowly turned her gaze downward. She saw the howling black mist and dancing black lights. She narrowed her eyes and raised her sword with all her might. Astria pulled the gigantic lightsaber behind her back and swung it at the bottom half of the cliff where the black fog was billowing. Clang! Between heaven and earth, a sharp and clear whistling sound reverberated, shaking all directions. The sharp light sword slashed through the space below, breaking through the atmosphere, like a sharp sword light, flashing by. When the greatsword ray landed, the area went silent for 2 to 3 seconds. Around the cliff, the black mist and black light continued to move. It was as if they were mocking Astria for overestimating herself. They were mocking Astria for not being able to pull any punches with her earlier attack. If the black mist and black light really had the ability to express their emotions in the form of mockery, then what replaced their mockery in the previous moment would only be utter shock and despair. The rolling black fog, the dancing black light, at a certain moment, paused for a split-second view. A gentle breeze blew across the cliff. It didn't stir up the black fog or black light. It was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Then the cliff split open. The part of the cliff that was parallel to the ground suddenly trembled and split open neatly. The entire cliff was cut open. Any part of the cliff that was filled with black fog and black light was separated from the ground and tilted towards the ground. With a loud bang, the cliff fell down with great momentum. Unfortunately, before the cliff could fall, Astria started swinging her greatsword at the cliff. She unleashed one sword ray after another. The entire area was filled with her sword dance. Without the slightest suspense, Gaia, who was falling to the ground, was simply chopped into countless pieces under the continuous slashes of the giant's sword, smashing to the ground like falling stones. It seemed that until this time, the black fog and black light seemed to have reacted, and violent fluctuations began to appear. Artemis II, Permanent Rear-End Missile 2. Suddenly, the halo above Ikaros' head expanded several times. It expanded to the same height as her slender shoulders. Ikaros opened her cold eyes. Her 2 pairs of 4 pink wings seemed to have transformed into a pair of pink wings of light, slowly unfurling behind her back. In the next second, the sky above the giant beast forest was filled with pink streams of light. As they rose and fell, they streaked across the sky and landed on the cliff that had been cut into countless pieces and was still wrapped in black fog and black light. Bang, 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 bang. Deafening explosions rang out one after another, and the frequency of the explosions was dozens of times higher than when the fireworks were shot during the ceremony. The sky was replaced by fire and smoke. This is really... Wu Yin, who was standing behind Ikaros and Astrea, was speechless when he saw the sky filled with flames and explosions. Of the two angels beside him, one has unparalleled destructive power and AoE abilities. The other has insane speed and close-range combat abilities. They're the best candidates for both one-on-one and group battles. Daedalus was indeed the most powerful and greatest scientist in Synapse to be able to create two angels like this. There is no one else like him. He looked at Ikaros and Astrea in the sky, and he chuckled helplessly, but at the same time, he also chuckled to himself. Well, if I have the chance to visit Heavenly Item, I should thank Daedalus properly. Master, Ikaros and Astrea flapped their wings and flew back to Wu Yan's side. Is this good enough? Yes, and then just destroy it. Wu Yan nodded, and he smiled at Ikaros and Astrea. Thanks for your hard work. Ikaros flinched and lowered her head, obviously embarrassed by Wu Yan's praise. Astrea nodded her head and proudly put her hands on her hips. What do you think? Amazing, right? Oh. Wu Yan raised an eyebrow. He started messing with Astrea's hair that was tied to the right side of her head with a single ponytail that looked like a pair of wings. I thought that after the second evolution, you would have matured quite a bit. But now, it seems that only your appearance has changed. Your personality is still unflattering. Why? Astrea frantically tried to block Wu Yan's hand that is ruffling her hair. She started dancing around in a frenzy. Stop it, you idiot. How dare you resist? Master. Master is the idiot. Idiot, idiot. Oh, not only did you resist, you even talked back. Let's see if I don't teach you a lesson tonight. Tonight, Astrea's face turned red. Master. Pervert. Blinking her eyes, Ikaros tilted her head as she watched Wu Yin and Astrea messing around with each other. She looked at them enviously. Kaboom! It was also at this moment that a violent explosion suddenly resounded from within the flames that filled the sky. When Wu Yin, Ikaros, and Astrea looked up, they saw a sea of black mist covering the sky and the earth. The black mist roiled around them like a tidal wave, enveloping them completely. Chapter 1037. Like 1,000 layers of waves in the middle of a storm, the black mist came crashing down like a dark cloud. It covered a small area of the behemoth forest. The black lights in the black fog were like sharp arrows, shuttling back and forth in the black fog, destroying everything that was covered by the black fog. Not long after, apart from the ground, the magic beasts and trees that were covered by the black fog were pierced full of holes in less than a second, fragmenting into pieces. If the black mist can cover the entire behemoth forest, the behemoth forest will cease to exist. If the black mist can cover the entire Spalier world, one can only imagine how despairing the scene would be. The black mist flowed like clouds on the ground. If one ignored the black lights, it would look like a poisonous miasma in a forest. It would make one's hair stand on end. Even if it's a Tier 9 fighter, they might be able to hold on for a while. But if they stay in the black mist for too long, they will die. Just like Ikaros, who was trapped by the black mist, the black mist is too troublesome to deal with. There are too many black lights. This is an opponent that relies on numbers to win. Fortunately, Wu Yin, Ikaros, and Astrea didn't get attacked by the black mist or black lights. Otherwise, they would be in big trouble. Above the black mist, Wu Yin, Ikaros, and Astrea appeared from a spatial ripple. They floated in the air again, looking at the black mist covering their field of vision. The three of them felt their heart palpitate. If Astrea didn't use photon swings to pull Wu Yin and Ikaros away as fast as she could, Wu Yin and Ikaros wouldn't have been able to escape with their lives. The three of them weren't enveloped by the black mist in the first place. When Ikaros reacted, she used Aegis 2 absolute defense circle 2, to deflect the incoming black light. Wuyan didn't have a chance to use space transfer. Ikaros and Astria were brought away from the black mist's attack range. That range. It's too wide. The black mist attack was too fast. It was too sudden. Otherwise, Wu Yin and Ikaros wouldn't even need to do anything. Astria alone could use her photon swings, multifaceted photon wings, to bring everyone away from this place. Wu Yin, Ikaros, and Astria were too careless. They were so careless that they almost fell into a dangerous situation. But you can't blame them. Whether it was Ikaros who was attacked before or the three who were attacked this time, they didn't expect the black mist and black light to have the ability to actively attack others. Yukari once told them that the black lights don't have sentience. They only have the instincts of a beast. They can determine when there is danger and when there is a threat to them. Based on the situation, they can escape based on their instincts. Other than that, they can only possess someone. However, the black mist didn't seem to have sentience when it attacked them. Instead, it seemed to be actively attacking them. This is why Wu Yin, Ikaros, and Astria almost fell into a dangerous situation due to their carelessness. What the hell is going on? Wu Yan's expression turned gloomy. Why did the black mist suddenly attack us? I thought they don't have sentience. Could it be because we launched the attack that caused it? Ikaros' eyes trembled when she heard Wu Yan's words. She whispered, I didn't attack when we were trapped. Ikaros' meaning was clear. She didn't attack, but she was still attacked by the black mist. At this moment, the three of them felt that the black fog that seemed easy to deal with was not as simple as they had imagined it to be. That right, if it was that easy, how could it trap Ikaros and almost attack Wu Yan's group? Is Yukari's judgment wrong? Wu Yan pondered for a moment before shaking his head. But that's impossible. If it's Violet, she must be very confident to give the answer that they don't have any consciousness. If she isn't absolutely sure, Violet won't give a conclusion. Wu Yan gnashed his teeth as he stared at the black mist below him with his wine-red eyes. There must be some other reason for the black mist to react this way. Ikaros and Astria looked at each other. They activated their radar and scanned the black mist. Their expressions changed when they saw the black mist. Astria cried out in alarm. Master, be careful. Before he could finish his sentence, the thick black fog below suddenly swelled and began to swirl at a speed that was difficult to discern with the naked eye, causing a series of ear-piercing explosions. Not long after, a sharp tornado formed from the black fog was formed in an instant. It shot out like a thunderbolt, piercing through the layers of atmosphere like a giant rotating machine gun, piercing into the sky. Its target was Wu Yan's group. It was another sudden attack. But this time, the three of them were on high alert. They weren't as careless as before. As the tornado swept over, the three of them tensed up at the same time. Watch me. As expected, Astria reacted the fastest. In a flash, she appeared in front of Wu Yin and Ikaros. Astria swung her greatsword and with a heavy swing, she slashed horizontally at the tornado coming at her. Poochie, as if it had cut open the body of some creature, an unusually crisp sound of breaking flesh reverberated. The violent tornado was directly cut into two halves in the process of flying through the air. Before Astria could rejoice, the two halves of the black mist tornado didn't stop moving. It continued to move towards the three of them. It formed two smaller black mist tornadoes along the way. Whoosh! Without the slightest pause, two tornadoes of black fog soared into the sky. They were like two black dragons as they broke through the air and attacked the three people. Aegis 2, activate! Just as Wu Yin was about to teleport the two girls again, Ikaros appeared in front of them like Astria did. She spread her wings, and a transparent crystal barrier enveloped the three of them. In the next second, the black mist tornado came and crashed into the Aegis 2, Absolute Defense Circle 2, with a howl of the wind. Bam! A huge muffled sound reverberated, causing the ears of the three people in the circular barrier to buzz. Their minds went blank, and before they could react, The sharp sound of the collision between the black fog tornado and the Aegis, absolute defense circle 2, also rang out, causing the hearts of the three people to clench fiercely as their faces turned ugly. Ikaros gritted her teeth, her eyes flashed. Trajectory correction. A ripple that contained a strange power flowed on the surface of the Aegis, absolute defense circle 2. With the black fog tornado as the center, the ripple gradually spread out and was transmitted to the black fog tornado. Bam! Amidst the ripples, the black tornado was smashed into pieces by a ferocious force. It shattered into bits of mist and scattered in all directions. That ferocious force was the force of the black fog tornado itself. Ikaros Aegis 2, absolute defense circle 2, has the ability to reflect all external attacks. The black mist tornado can be considered as reaping what it sowed, of course, to the black fog that didn't have a physical body. This little bit of damage was nothing. The scattered black fog fragments suddenly swirled and turned into laser-like arrows. Like meteors, they enveloped the black fog without any regard for the head. There's no end to this. Aegis 2, absolute defense circle 2. The three people inside the Aegis 2 showed a troubled expression. As a result, the three of them did not notice that there was a hole in the ground where the cliff used to be. Inside the hole, a pair of cold and murderous eyes filled with black light is looking at them. Or rather, it's looking at Wu Yan. Chapter 1038. At this moment, if someone were to personally witness everything that was happening here, they would see a scene like this: black raindrops fell from the sky above the behemoth forest like a storm. The raindrops fell mercilessly towards the ground. To be more precise, the raindrops fell toward a transparent crystal barrier. Clang, 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 clang. The sound of a bell ringing reverberated throughout the behemoth forest. The black raindrops fell on the transparent crystal barrier, creating ripples on the surface. The raindrops bounced off the barrier and returned to the sky. Not long after, the raindrops fell onto the barrier again. They bounced off the barrier, and fell down again. The cycle repeated over and over again. Over time, the sound of a bell ringing reverberated throughout the behemoth forest. The sound reverberated throughout the forest. The demonic beasts that heard it all ran away with their tails between their legs. This scene has been going on for a while now. Wu Yin and Astria gnashed their teeth as they looked at the endless rain of lasers raining down on them. Being inside the Aegis 2, Wu Yin and Astria gnashed their teeth in anger. Bluntly put, whether it's the black mist, the black light, or the black raindrops, their attacks might be scary to normal people, but in the eyes of Wu Yin and co., they're nothing. The real problem is that the amount of black mist, black light, and black raindrops are too much to deal with. If only there were fewer of them. Deal with them. It wouldn't be that hard. This is the first time Wu Yin, Astria, and even Ikaros have encountered something so troublesome. They would rather fight someone of equal strength than them. They would rather fight someone stronger than them thousands of times. They don't want to fight someone who is weaker than them, someone who is extremely troublesome to deal with. If they took advantage of their carelessness, the ambush would still be somewhat effective. However, once they became serious, fighting with such troublesome creatures, he could not do anything to them, and they could not do anything to him. There is simply no end to this. If this situation continues, Wu Yin, Ikaros, and Astria will eventually run out of energy. Even if one were to use their knees to think, they would still be able to understand. How could a cluster of black mist and black light without a physical body be consumed? Therefore, once it becomes a protracted battle, the ones who will lose will only be us. They have to deal with the black mist and black light before that happens. With Wu Yin and the other two's strength, they won't die, but they will definitely run away. At that time, it would be truly vexing. Wu Yin bitterly smiled and looked at Ikaros. Ikaros, are you okay? Yes. Ikaros nodded with ease. The enemy's attacks aren't strong enough to pose a threat, but if this continues... I understand. Wu Yin sighed. We can't get into a protracted battle. Otherwise, in the end, we can only retreat. Then what should we do? Astrea fiddled with the sheathed great sword in her hand. She looked troubled. My sword won't be able to deal with so many of them. Me too. Ikaros turned around and looked at Wu Yin. Arte Missile 2 might be able to deal with the current situation, but the unknown objects won't be damaged. There's a high chance they will form a new attack pattern, so I don't recommend it. In other words, Wu Yin looked up at the black raindrops falling from the sky. Unless we can eliminate these black things, we will have no choice but to retreat. Ikaros nodded, confirming Wu Yan's words. Astrea may be clueless, but she can tell that this situation is disadvantageous for her. Especially since she doesn't specialize in AoE attacks. She might not be able to be of any use in this situation. She already activated Pandora for 2 evolutions, but it didn't come in handy. Astrea couldn't help but feel disheartened. Alright, don't mind it. Wu Yin rubbed Astrea's 2 blonde ponytails, and he smiled warmly at her. You aren't good at group battles, but your combat prowess is incredible. No one will doubt your ability. If it was another enemy, you would be able to defeat them in a matter of minutes. Is that so? Astrea blinked. She nodded her head and giggled. Yeah, I'm good too. Seeing that Astrea has recovered, Wu Yin rubbed her hair and walked in front of Ikaros. He narrowed his eyes when he looked at her. Completely annihilate these things, huh? Wu Yin rubbed his chest, and he mumbled while shaking his head. Looks like you're the only one who can deal with these annoying things. Give me a hand, Canon. Wu Yan's voice pierced through space, time, the atmosphere, and even his body. Wu Yan's voice reverberated through his body. With this call, Wu Yin could feel a certain consciousness awakening within his body. The corners of his mouth slowly curled into a joyful arc. His wine-red pupils instantly turned into a noble golden color. At the same time, a violent magical heat wave began to surge crazily. The pitch-black color dyed his hands black, and red veins started to crawl up his arms. The blood mist started to reverberate and tangled with the surging mana. The mist passed through Ikaros Ijizii, Absolute Defense Circle 2, and rose into the air. Wu Yin raised his ghostly hand covered in red veins. Descend. Angelic Holy Light. This is the 3rd light of the day. Different from the previous 2, this one is not only golden, it doesn't have a powerful energy wave. Instead, it's very gentle, like the early winter sun. It's very warm when it shines on people. However, when such a warm light shone on those black raindrops, they didn't even have the time to greet or react. Like flames that touched water, they evaporated with a sizzling sound and turned into a puff of green smoke. Wu Yin and the other 2's eyes lit up. The golden light shined as well. Wong. The blood mist that rose into the air and entwined with magic power slightly twisted, forming a circle. Under the illumination of the golden light, the blood-colored fog was slowly dyed gold. When the entire fog was completely golden, the fog fluctuated and condensed into a figure. It's a figure with 3 pairs of pure white wings, a halo on top of her head, eyes shut tight, and eye-catching silver hair. Ikaros and Astrea were shocked when they saw the figure. They didn't expect Wu Yin to summon a person, and a very beautiful one at that. A pure and holy aura rose around Canon like steam, giving off a very holy feeling. This holy aura, Ikaros' body also has it. However, Ikaros' holy aura can only be sensed by humans. Canon's holy aura can even be sensed by the black mist and black light. That's because they instinctively sensed danger from the holy aura. The black fog, black light, and black raindrops that filled the sky abruptly stopped their attack. They paused in mid-air, as if they were trembling. After a moment of hesitation, they actually didn't dare to continue their attack. Perhaps Canon sensed the presence of the black mist, black light, and black raindrops. She opened her eyes. Her icy blue eyes were exposed to the air and imprinted the scene in front of her in her eyes. Then, Canon moved. Spreading out his hands, an extremely dense golden brilliance suddenly spread out, instantly illuminating the entire area. wrapping all the black fog and black light within, not missing even a single bit. TSK, 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 TSK. Wu Yin, Astrea, and Astrea watched as the black mist, black light, and black raindrops evaporated under the golden light. The sound of TSK, TSK, TSK could be heard everywhere. Chapter 1039. TSK, 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 TSK. The sound of flames being extinguished by waves of water echoed in the forest. The black mist that covered the sky above the behemoth forest has completely disappeared. It was replaced by a dense white mist. Of course, this white mist was just some ordinary steam. It was not an existence that possessed evil power like the black mist. Being in the white mist, not only could one feel the warm touch of the white mist when it brushed past one's body, one could also feel a surge of power from it. The power of purification. This is one of the only two abilities Canon has in her angelic form. Although it didn't have much destructive power, it was the most effective ability to deal with negative attributes and evil powers with curses and the like. Without a doubt, the black mist and black light that were able to forcefully transform living creatures into ferocious monsters was definitely not a positive energy. Under such circumstances, Canon's purification power was definitely their most terrifying natural enemy. Wu Yin, Ikaros, and Astrea can see this from the fact that Canon took less than a minute to deal with the black mist and black chi that had been bothering Wu Yin, Ikaros, and Astrea. Canon floated in the white mist with a golden glow around her. She looked around her to make sure there isn't a speck of black mist in her sight. She sighed in relief. With this action, Canon's sacred and inviolable aura gradually receded, and she became gentle and calm. She is like an angel who fell from the heavens. She still has her wings, but she has a human touch to her. People don't dare to approach her. Her green eyes shifted downwards, and when she saw Wu Yan's figure, those eyes that seemed to be able to speak lit up. She looked at her owner's face. A joyful smile appeared on her master's face. For Canon, who has been sleeping inside Wu Yan's body, only a second has passed since she saw Wu Yan. She saw him before she fell asleep. She saw him the moment she woke up. Maybe it didn't even take a second. However, during the time she lived with Wu Yan in the Bloodlust Rampage world, Canon became dependent on Wu Yan. Canon started relying on Wu Yan. Her reliance on Wu Yan only grew stronger after she became his familiar. No matter how long she hasn't seen Wu Yan, every time she sees him, Canon would feel happy from the bottom of her heart. It's easy to imagine how much Canon relies on Wu Yan. Nagisa is also very dependent on Wu Yan. After all, she is only a 14 or 15-year-old girl. Plus, she has to rely on him because of her emotions. Even Agrora wants to stay by Wu Yan's side. Natsuki is the only one who is still the same. Of course, that's only on the surface. Sensei, Canon called out softly. She flew towards Wu Yan with 3 pairs of white wings. She stared at Wu Yan with her sparkling eyes. Then, she lowered her head in embarrassment. Thank you, Canon. You've been a great help. Wu Yan sighed in relief when he saw the black mist disappearing. He caressed Canon's silvery hair. That annoying thing has been bothering me for a long time. Canon took care of it in an instant. You're amazing. Canon smiled shyly. Her cheeks blushed. I'm Sensei's familiar. My power is Sensei's power. That's a great honor. Ikaros and Astrea, who had been observing Canon, also walked up to her. They sized her up with their crimson eyes, and a strange light flashed in their eyes. Astrea was the first to speak. Hey, Master. Astrea tugged at Wu Yan's sleeve. She asked curiously, who is this child? Before Wu Yan could answer, Astrea flew to Canon's back and caressed her white wings. Wow, she has wings too. They're the same color as mine. Is this child an angel too? What's her model? Astrea has never heard of it before. That. Her wings trembled under Astrea's touch. Canon was startled by Astrea's enthusiasm. She started stuttering, and she looked at Wu Yan with a pleading look. She wanted Wu Yan to stop Astrea from acting like an idiot. Stop being so naughty. Can't you see how troubled she is? Wu Yin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He pulled Astria to his side, and he gave her a light knock on her head. His appearance has evolved to become so mature. But why is his personality still so unflattering? I'm curious. I'm just curious. Astria puffed up her cheeks without a care for her image. Wu Yin found it funny. Canon isn't an angel, but she's still an angel. Wu Yin rubbed Canon's head as he smiled at Ikaros and Astria. Canon seemed to be shy with strangers. Wu Yin smiled at Ikaros and Astria. That's why she is your little sister. You have to take good care of her. Little sister? Ikaros paused for a moment before looking at Canon with a gentle gaze. Yes, master. Wow. Little sister. I have a little sister too. Astria cheered and flew to Canon's side. She grabbed Canon's hands and patted her chest with her chest puffed out. Don't worry, master. I will take good care of my little sister. Oh, you. Wu Yin smiled bitterly. Don't let anyone else take care of you. Thank the heavens. Canon stared blankly at the beautiful golden-haired girl who was holding her hand and had the same pair of wings as her. Her green eyes trembled slightly, and a hint of warmth welled up in her heart. Canon calmed down. She didn't let go of Astria's hand. She bowed to Ikaros. You're right. Ikaros nodded her head. My name is Canon. Nice to meet you. My name is Astria. You have to call me Astria Nasan. Astria giggled. She emphasized the word Nasan as if she really wanted a little sister. Well, it's understandable. Astria was the last to be created by Daedalus in the first generation of angeloids. She was the youngest in terms of age and experience. Coupled with her unsettling personality, it was only natural that the word little sister would appear in the minds of everyone who interacted with her. Otherwise, Hinajiku and Mikoto wouldn't have taken care of Astria all the time. Even Yukari took special care of her. That's why Astria really wanted a younger sister. She didn't want a little sister like Flander-chan or Yoshino who stayed by Wu Yan's side. She wanted a real little sister. Unfortunately, before Astria was summoned, Daedalus didn't create any more angeloids. Synapse didn't create a second generation of angeloids either. Astria had no choice but to sit obediently in the youngest position. Canon's appearance made Astria happy. Canon isn't an omnipotent angel, but Wu Yin did say that she's an angel. She also has the same wings as Astria. Astria felt like she's finally found a real sister. She's happy to see her. Astria pointed at Ikaros with excitement. Next, this is Ikaros Senpai. Ikaros nodded at Canon. Canon smiled back at her. The atmosphere was so harmonious that it was as if they forgot they were on a battlefield. Now that the introductions are over, it's time to leave. Wu Yin looked around, and he called out to the other three. Chuju and Mikoto are still waiting for us. Yes. The three angel-like girls nodded. They flapped their wings and followed behind Wu Yin. They flew out of the behemoth forest and disappeared into the distance. Silence returned to the scene. Only a very light sentence reverberated in the air. We have another debt to settle, Wu Yin. Chapter 1040. Behemoth Forest, Camp, Stare. The group of girls stood in a row and stared at Canon, who was standing at the entrance. They didn't say anything and didn't do anything else. They just stared at Canon. The atmosphere in the tent became deathly silent and didn't disperse for a long time. Canon, who wasn't very courageous to begin with, became even more nervous under the fierce gazes of the girls. Her green eyes kept darting around, and her face was filled with panic. She looked restlessly at Wu Yin with pleading eyes, and she was on the verge of tears. Wu Yin wanted to help Canon, but he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to do, so he started looking around, trying to find someone to help him. Wu Yin wanted to help, but he didn't know what to do, so he started looking around for help. Unfortunately, Astria, who was yelling about taking care of Canon, went straight to the table and started feasting with Toka after entering the tent. As for Ikaros, rather than hoping that she would be able to help in this situation, he might as well hope that the Pandora system would evolve her emotional abilities. Sighing faintly, Wu Yin could only turn his gaze to the corner. Z, who had been watching coldly from the sidelines, was enjoying the taste of the black tea. He seemed to have felt Wu Yan's gaze. Violet turned her head and met Wu Yan's pleading eyes. She blinked her eyes, and a smile appeared in her purple eyes. She glanced at Wu Yan with a smile that was not a smile. Then, she picked up the cup again and drank the black tea. He was completely ignored. With tears streaming down his face, Wu Yan glanced at the girls who were glaring at Cannon. Glancing at the uneasy Cannon, he gritted his teeth, braced himself, and walked forward. Before he could finish his sentence, the girls' gazes on Cannon turned sharp. They shifted their attention to Wu Yan. Chuju, Mikoto, Shokoho Misaki, and Kotori looked at him with malicious intent. Wu Yan felt cold sweat dripping down his forehead. Damn it! Under the watchful eyes of the girls, Wu Yan's body stiffened up. His mouth, that was about to open his mouth, shut up as tears started streaming down his cheeks. Cannon, on the other hand, when he sensed that the girls had shifted their gazes away, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. He finally began to observe the group of girls, his green eyes fluctuating. Are these the most important people to Sensei? She looked at the beautiful girls in front of her, each with their own beauty. Cannon raised her hand to look at the girls who were just as beautiful. She held it in front of her chest. She was stunned, but also troubled. Since they are the most important people to Wu Yan, Cannon felt that she must get along well with them. Otherwise, she'll cause trouble for Wu Yan. However, the girls didn't seem to welcome her very much. Cannon couldn't help but worry. She didn't dare to look at the girls anymore. She turned her head to the side, but when she did, a huge face appeared in front of her. She jumped in fright. Lana seemed to be deep in thought. She didn't know when Lana appeared next to Cannon. She looked at Cannon up and down with her large eyes. She looked very serious. Cannon felt uneasy under Rena's scrutinizing gaze. She twisted her body and said meekly, "I'm sorry, Rena. Is there something you need?" Lana seemed to be deep in thought. She finally fixed her eyes on Cannon's face. Then she smiled. She looked like a beggar who saw a delicious meal after starving for a week. She drooled and smiled strangely. Then Rena jumped up. "Isn't this a very cute girl?" With a loud cry, Rena jumped with all her might and pounced on Cannon. Cannon didn't expect this to happen. She couldn't help but scream. She looked at Lana, who was getting closer and closer to her. She didn't know what to do and instinctively closed her eyes. At this moment, a large hand suddenly reached out from Rena's side and grabbed her face. "It's our first time meeting. You despicable Yuri girl. Control yourself," Wu Yan shouted. He swung the hand that grabbed Lana's face and slammed it on the ground. With a muffled bang, Rena fell to the ground with her face on the ground. Her legs twitched a few times, then she fell silent. Wu Yan clapped his hands. He didn't even look at Lana. Inside, he's grateful to Lana. After Rena's antics, the tension in his heart had unknowingly lessened by a lot. At that moment, as if he had thrown caution to the wind, he pulled Cannon's hand and stepped forward slightly to face the girls. "She's Cannon." Wu Yan pushed Cannon's back and said, "She's a family member who lived with me in the dungeon world. She should be a family member soon. Let's get to know each other." When Cannon heard the word family, she blushed slightly and bowed deeply to the group of girls. Her heart calmed down as she heard the word family. "I'm Kanae's Cannon. Nice to meet you all." The moment she finished speaking, the group of girls in the tent looked at each other in unison. They didn't say anything until a long time later. They faintly sighed and hung a smile on their faces. "You're Yan's familiar, aren't you?" Hinajiku stepped forward and helped the bowing Cannon up. "Kanae's Cannon, right?" Not a bad name. Just call me Chuju. I'm Misaka Mikoto. Can I call you Cannon?" Mikoto greeted Cannon naturally. She didn't seem as nervous as before. Instead, she acted as if she was familiar with Cannon. It made people wonder if she was the one who was staring at Cannon. "Why, yes." Cannon was stunned for a moment before she quickly replied, "Just call me Cannon. She's quite a pretty girl." Shokoho Misaki ran her fingers through her hair and looked at Ikaros. "She has the same aura as Ikaros and has the same hair color as Fei Fei. Are you a foreigner?" "Yes." Yes." My grandfather and father are all foreigners. Oh? Coterie glanced at Cannon and said with interest, That's rare. It's the first time a foreigner has joined us. If we don't count the angels and elves from Synapse. Era, is that so? Kurumi tilted her head and pointed at her lips with a smile. But it feels like Sabono is a foreign child, huh? The four brownies who were suddenly pulled into the topic were stunned. The young ladies also looked at the four brownies who were like Western dolls and nodded their heads. She looks super similar. Yono. Kanuhata, Sai said. Did you all forget about me? Frenda lowered her head with a pained expression. She's also a foreigner, a pure foreigner. Takitsubu Riku didn't say anything. She nodded at Cannon, who didn't know what to do due to the girl's sudden enthusiasm. She's a good person. Wait, let her play with Flandre-chan. Flandre-chan, on the other hand, spoke as if there was no one around. Her face was full of joy, but there was no murderous glint in her wine-red eyes. It seemed that she had accepted Cannon as her friend. The girls gathered around Cannon and started chatting. Cannon's expression became more and more relaxed. Seeing this, Wu Yin, who was standing at the back, also relaxed. He nodded in satisfaction. Oof. Mikoto, who saw Wu Yin nod his head, snorted coldly before glaring at him. Don't misunderstand. We just like Cannon. We don't intend to forgive you. Ma, it doesn't matter. Wu Yin chuckled and blocked Mikoto's words. He shrugged nonchalantly. As long as you can accept Cannon, I'm willing to do anything. Cannon was touched. The other girls looked at him with disdain, but their lips curled up into a smile. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.